I'm Sandeep, and you're watching the Indian Weekender. Tonight, we bring you our election 2020 special coverage. I'm joined with our esteemed colleague and editor at large, Devnath Karni, and we are going to bring you the key Indian perspective about the outcome of this election. So, welcome to our studio, Dev.
Hi, happy to be here. Happy.
Great. And so, what we are going to do today is we are going to do a quick analysis of how this campaign has been and talk more about the results as it come, which we are told are going to come pretty fast. And we are also going to speak to three specialists with whom we are going to speak. We have got Professor Shekhar Bandyopadhyay, Emeritus Professor from Victoria University of Wellington, who will be joining us in a little bit for now. And then we will also be speaking to two prominent community leaders, Sunil Kaushal, who is president of Vaitakre Indian Association, and Prashant Belwalkar, who is president of Marathi Association and an ardent observer of political processes here in New Zealand. And along with that, we are going to take calls from our audiences, viewers who we believe would be quite keenly watching this outcome of this great elections. So yeah, that's all for tonight, Dave, and how excited you are.
Absolutely. I mean, it looks like because of such great numbers of early voting and the counting having begun at 9 a.m. this morning, the results are going to come thick and fast pretty early.
Sure.
So I suppose it's not going to be a long night by any standard.
Yeah, I think it's good news for everyone, including us reporters, editors, and politicians as well, and of course for the audiences and their supporters.
Absolutely.
Right. And can you tell us the reason? Like you just told me the reason that why actually we are expecting a quick result. The counting has already begun from 9 a.m. this morning, and which is usually the case. But in previous years, when the number of advanced voting was comparatively less, then probably that took a lot more time for them to count. So yeah, that is interesting. Now, before we go on and start looking into the results, a quick word about the last debate. What were your thoughts about the last debate, Dave?
I think the last debate, the first thing I noticed was that, the posture of sitting and debating was much more calmer. It seemed to be a little more sober, more corporate, more, decent, or whatever. And I think they were more on point, although the insults did go from here to there. But I'd like to add that Judith Collins kind of laid herself bare once again to criticism that she was, going to be extra critical and sticking to her guns about, the capital gains tax, which Jacinda was at pains to say that no, I have said this 50 times, I think she said.
Was it for capital gains or was it for wealth tax attributed to Greens Party?
Wealth tax attributed to Greens Party. Sorry, yes, that's right. And so on that score, it was quite needless on the part of Judith. But then it probably also gave a little bit of credence to what Jacinda was saying. She said it was desperate, and it looked like that.
Sure. Well, of course, I would not disagree on that. But for me, probably a more important query will be that why Judith was behaving in that way throughout the campaign. Was it her natural self? Which you all know. She's definitely more combative than other peers and colleagues. But probably in this campaign, she has taken it to a slightly higher level. So was it a conscious choice to shore up national score supporters or people actually who would have fled from National's fold after last many polls?
It probably was. As we said, this was a incumbent's election to lose. So Judith had nothing to really lose. And I think she wanted to shore up whatever she could muster in the last few days.
And as probably you would have noted that as we presented analysis in our last week's newspaper, which is already out there,
right.
Probably the challenge was for Judith Collins and her tacticians and statisticians to present Judith as an alternative to Jacinda Ardern's leadership and style of leadership. So as a lot of people, they think that Jacinda is too soft and the kind, compassionate style of politics and of course, her critiques often say that there is a lot of fluff as well in that politics and less substance as well. So probably Judith and her team decided to present Judith as a somebody who is bold and assertive, who is willing to take quick decisions, minus the fluff that is being attributed to her adversary side. And the challenge was to present her not as a different Jacinda, but as a altogether separate and I would say contrast to Jacinda.
Absolutely.
And that's why probably they were building on that persona, isn't it?
Yeah, I think yes, and I think she did very well, and Judith gave her plenty of opportunity to do really well in that. One of the things which the way it was done was that young boy's question from Christchurch, from the Royston School, and called Lucas, and he said, "What is the one thing that you would do for the country?" And while Judith went on saying what she was and what she had to offer, and basically reading out her experience in Bhairara, Jacinda said what the party's thing would be. And finally, when she went back to talking after Judith had finished, she said, this is about Lucas's future. So she steered the whole thing back to the person who asked the question. Sure. Whereas Judith seemed to be centered on her own achievements and
well, I think that's a very important point, I would say, a very good point, I would say, Dave. And probably the fact that that point was made in the last and the final leaders debate. So if we look at the whole leaders debate spectrum, if you recall in the first debate, probably Jacinda was kind of outwitted by Judith, who was actually more on the point, and she was perceived to have won that debate, and Jacinda was kind of off color. And then probably from there onwards, probably Jacinda started picking it up, and she finished with aplomb in the last debate, and probably she ticked all the boxes quite nicely, isn't it?
Right. Well, we've got some new trends coming in, and Labour is leading in at least 50% of the seats. With National is about 26, 23, 26. Yeah. So
that's
it's wholly expected.
It is definitely expected, and nothing I would say sensational over there. If we have been following the polls, the only thing that could have changed possibly would have been, and probably we look forward to that happening it now, about the validity of those opinion polls, as we have been seeing in last many successive polls that Labour would be polling around at 46%.
That's right.
And if your the input that you are getting does say that probably they are polling ahead in 50% seat, then they're even better than what we have been seeing in the opinion polls, isn't it?
That's correct. That's correct.
So now let's address the biggest question that we are going to, that has been asked many times, and probably a lot of experts and analysts have been trying to address that will Labour storm to form a Labour-only government, or will it stop short of getting Greens as their partner?
Well, we don't know. There seems to be at this juncture a 6.7% of wasted votes, which some pundits have said that if it's more than 7 or 8%, it's likely that Labour might get an absolute majority of being able to form the government on their own without the help of the Greens. Now that is something which is unprecedented in New Zealand's MMP history. So,
and it would be sorry to interrupt you there. Probably it would be good if we can explain to our Kiwian audiences who would have been in the country for probably just around 5-6 odd years, to explain then why it is so unprecedented. So a brief history of MMP system and how it works.
Yeah, MMP is really designed for a multilateral kind of leadership system, where it is nearly impossible, unless there is an absolutely overwhelming majority who votes for it, for one single party. And this is not, this is the reason why there are 2 votes which every New Zealander has. One is for the party and one is for the for the local MP. So there can be, you can vote for the party separately, and you can vote for the local leader separately, and then people also, I think, the New Zealand voter is incredibly politically aware and quite politically savvy, and I think traditionally they have voted in such a way strategically to see that if they have a partner, a coalition partner of the major party that they are supporting, they would strategically vote for the coalition partner, so that that voice is also heard in Parliament.
Definitely. And explaining a little bit more about the philosophy of MMP system. The philosophy of MMP system is to get the minority views to the center as well. So the whole idea is that unlike in the first past the post system, which is prevalent in many other parts of the world, including in India as well, where the first party, the major party that wins the election, forms the overwhelming government. And over there, it is perceived that a lot of time the votes, the kind of vote share that they are getting, the winning party is getting, is basically probably around 30 odd percent, and 70 odd percent votes is most of the time divided into other parties. That necessarily means that the party that is leading or ahead in the elections may not the one, may have been rejected by 70%, 70 odd percent of population over there.
That's correct.
So the whole idea is that through this MMP system, the minority views, the parties which the views that are being attributed in the minority parties, they also come to the center, and then we can have a good coalition government over there. And that is why probably coalition building is so important in the MMP system.
Absolutely.
And just going back into the history, that it has been probably around 2 decades since this MMP system have started here in New Zealand. And till date, no one has been able to form single party government. Even Sir John Key's government, which was at very historically high level of popularity, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
well, we need to see that what happens tonight. Well, that's a conversation that we are having right now, assuming that Jacinda Ardern is going to storm back into power, Labour Party would be coming back into power, right? So have you already given up?
Let me just add to what you said. Under a first past the post system, it is very difficult to have a diversity of voices inside. Now, for example, we would never have had so many ethnic MPs representing New Zealand, if it wasn't for the MP system. We've got 3 people of Indian origin right now.
Of course.
And there are people from Philippines.
Yeah. So talking about it, this is again a very emotional issue out in our Kiwi Indian community, जहाँ पे हमारे लोग ये सोचते हैं कि जो हमारे एमपीज़ हैं, जो अभी तक जो हमारे एमपीज़ हैं वो लिस्ट एमपीज़ रहे हैं, और लिस्ट एमपीज़ में जो होता है वो किसी एक इलेक्ट्रेट से इलेक्ट नहीं होते हैं, बल्कि पार्टी में उस कम्युनिटी को रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं और पार्टी उन्हें अपॉइंट करती है. तो ऐसा एक परसेप्शन रहता है हमारे दर्शकों में, हमारे कम्युनिटी में, हमारी पूरी किवी इंडियन कम्युनिटी में, कि शायद वो एमपीज़ क्योंकि किसी एक इलेक्ट्रेट से नहीं हैं तो शायद वो उतने अकाउंटेबल नहीं हैं, which is a fair criticism, which I would say is fair doubt and fair aspiration. But the thing is that that's the only way that a smaller ethnic migrant community can get their MPs in the parliament.
That is true. And, it really smacks of tokenism at one level, because the MMP system sort of guarantees a wide ethnic representation. So it's really up to the party to select any candidate, not necessarily who has the majority backing of the community.
Of course.
So
well, that's another problem.
That kind of defeats the purpose of what is known as democratically elected government.
Of course.
But at the same time, it gives a voice. So it's probably MMP.
It's a halfway there. Actually.
There's no system which is perfect.
Perfect. Fair enough. Well, thinking from again, taking a step back and thinking from our ethnic migrant communities' ethnic minority, I would say ethnic minority migrants communities' perspective, probably if they have to choose between the lesser levels among the two, then probably I think list MP system and the MMP system is working better for them. At least we have got somebody representing the community, even if that is for pretension, I would say.
Yep.
And but still, there is that representation is out there in the parliament.
Yep.
There is a more stronger conversation going on between those MPs. And as our community gets more aspirational, we get more politically aware. We basically go back to our MPs in the parliament and let them know about our aspirations. Then we do expect that this system will evolve and we will see more real representation, isn't it?
Right. I think the real test will be when an ethnic MP is elected to parliament electorally with votes.
Sure.
I think that is a long way off.
Well, again, let's see if it can happen this time in this election or not. So we have got 3 Kiwi Indian MPs who are standing again for their respective parties.
Right.
2 Kiwi Indian MPs are from National Party, Kamaljeet Singh Baxi, who holds recognition of being the first India-born Kiwi Indian MP to go into the parliament. He's a 4-time MP. So this is his probably shot in the 5th term. And he's standing from South Auckland constituency, which has been renamed as Panmure Otahu constituency. Again, that's a Labour Party stronghold. And current Minister of Ethnic Affairs, Jenny Salisa, she has been winning that seat for, I think, 2 or 3 successive terms. And then we have got another Kiwi Indian MP from National Party, Dr. Permjit Parmar, again, who is standing from Mount Roskill electorate, which is a Labour stronghold, traditionally held by Phil Goff, which is for probably around 2 to 2.5 decades, I would say, before he went on to become Auckland's mayor. And I think the interesting point will be to see how Priyanka Radhakrishnan, Labour Party's Kiwi Indian MP, who is a list MP, but she represents Mount Mangokiki, where our Kiwi Indian Weekenders head office is based here in Onehunga as well. So I'm not sure, like, if have you given any thought, like how this Mangokiki election and how is it a red seat or a blue seat, and what can we expect over here?
No, it's going to be quite interesting to see what happens and whether this election really throws up a electoral MP from the Indian community. But to answer about Mangokiki, I think it's pretty wide open at this stage.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At least from what we know, there is a chance, isn't it?
There is a chance.
There is a chance. The reason being, we don't know yet. Like this seat was currently is being held by Nationals Dennis Lee. But previously it was held by, I think, former Ethnic Affairs Minister of National Party, Sam Lutaliga. Right, and before that probably it was a red seat. That's what we have said.
Yes.
And so it converted into a blue seat. But what has happened this time that with this boundary change in the election commissions, probably there is again some boundary changes. So we don't know with confidence. Like, but the thing is, going by the last election night result, what we figured out was that probably riding on Jacinda's stardust, probably Priyanka Radhakrishnan really get a good number of votes over there. Although the loss margin was probably around 5,000 to 6,000 votes, but still she was able to get around 10,000 votes. But again, fingers crossed, we still don't know what's going to.
Just on Dennis Lee, do you think her criticism of Judith Collins, which got leaked, would that have any effect on her popularity here? What do you think?
Well, okay. Well, I personally don't think that it's going to affect. The reason being that probably it was too late, probably just 1 week before the voting, and at that time probably people they were already voting, and I don't think that look how it goes is that there are voters are 2 types. A, they are loyal to party, so they give tick to party and tick to candidate as well, right? And then we have got voters who are smart, who are intelligent, who choose to decide their votes based on their personal connection with the local MP, and whom they think which party should be the best party to represent them in the parliament, right? So probably what I would see is that voters would not like to punish Dennis Lee personally. The reason being that there are only 2 ways, like, people like National Score supporter who would like Judith to lead and win this election, right? They are going to vote for Dennis Lee regardless. Even if they like or they don't like, they will still be voting for Dennis Lee, right? Now, the other voters who would be possibly supporter of National Party, right? For them, the choice would be that should they punish Dennis Lee or should they punish National Party? For what I believe, Dennis Lee, that was not an act of notoriousness. That was an act of probably conveying to National Party's supporters, those who are more on the softer side and who have been, fleeing away in the last few odd months.
That's right.
That everything that Judith is representing out there in the campaigning, probably the entire caucus is not resolutely behind her. So that basically assures those voters who are on the softer side that there is a diversity of opinion within the National Caucus. And probably that those softer nationals will choose, national voters would choose not to punish Dennis Lee on that. And
I guess so. That's great.
Isn't it? Yes. Right. Okay. Now, I think as you are checking the latest updates, probably what I think I need to ask you is one important question before we just quickly jump into the election results.
That's right.
That we also did a piece on that in our newspaper.
That's right.
That given that this was a first ever COVID elections, COVID has caused much disruption, in every aspect of our life, right? So there was an expectation. I'm not sure how much you agree with that, but there was a huge expectation that this election campaign could have been remarkably different. There could have been deviation, if not a radical departure. There could have been a deviation from their affirmed ideologies. From the we could have seen a shift or an innovation from both, I would say, parties on the center left and parties on the center right as well. So I personally, I don't know, what are your views? What do you think? Like, are you satisfied with the way both the parties has chosen to remain status quoist in terms of campaigning, or you would have expected something different?
Yeah, I think this is a very clear symptom of the complete lack of depth in talent in both the parties.
Right.
Labor is just got 2 or 3 hard hitters, and then rest everybody has either failed or failed to make a mark.
Sure.
And the same thing goes for National, because National has had leadership issues. It's changed 3 in 3 months or 4 months or whatever it is. And all especially their manifestos have been hurriedly cobbled together. So I think it's quite obvious.
Well, I think that's a very valid point you have raised. And going by the criticism in the public narrative, probably we have heard many times that there is a short of talent in the Labour caucus, right? But I think there has not been much criticism of National Party throughout the last 3-year term, that there is an equal absence of good talent. And from what we are seeing it now, that probably we haven't got any I would say stalwart or any good MPs within National Party who can actually present the social conservative view.
That's right.
And the political and the fiscal conservative attitude, that why New Zealand public and voters should be opting for fiscal conservatism or say political conservatism, and that is a dearth of I would say vision as well from National Party as well.
Correct. I think National is really late to the party when it comes to the growing diversity in New Zealand.
Right.
Kiwis are increasingly of a varied color, and National is late to see that. I don't even know if they have really, taken on board the full implications of it. Whereas Labour has definitely. I mean, some time back, we were hearing from the Labour's meeting today that the diversity was much more than you would see. Ethnic diversity there.
Definitely. This time surely Labour has done well in terms of their getting those ethnically diverse faces in their list.
I think they also had very good opportunity, because things happenstance. Like for example, Christchurch happened, so that was quite.
It was sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it was sad, but then it was an opportunity which Labour used quite.
Well, that is we have to give full credit to Jacinda Ardern's leadership over there.
Oh, yes.
And
I mean, you can't accuse one thing of Jacinda, and that is of not being inclusive.
Sure,
She
definitely.
is absolutely inclusive. Yes.
And I think probably you would be checking into your inputs that you're receiving, and very soon we will be going live. We will be speaking to our
First guest,
I guess, and if we are just waiting for Professor Shekhar Bandyopadhyay to connect, and I don't think he would be very far. And very soon, I think we will be able to speak to one of our reporters from either Labour Party headquarters or National Party headquarters to get an idea how those parties are feeling at the moment, how they are reading to the latest trends. Yeah. So have you got any input on the latest trend, or is it the same?
Well, Labour 50.3, National 25.6, it's a Green 8.6, ACT 7.6. New Zealand First is still somewhere just about the 2% mark. So that's quite unsurprising, isn't it?
It is. So that's first of all. So that's first of all reestablishes the credibility of those opinion polls.
That's right.
Actually, what happens is that, this is a tendency that politicians, they start questioning on the opinion polls, and we have heard,
especially the ones that are trailing.
When they're trailing, definitely, that's very human nature. But the thing is that you don't expect it. Like, you can expect it from common people, but you can't, and you should not be expecting from seasoned politicians, isn't it? Yeah. I still recall that probably National's campaign chair and deputy leader Jerry Brownlee, he used the word rowdy poll, isn't it? What was that? Rogue poll race.
Everyone uses
yes,
rogue polls.
So rogue polls, and that was a very, I would say, outrageous criticism of that poll, isn't it? Yeah. And I think probably we are sitting on that mark, isn't it? Yeah. Because that poll was probably NewsHub's poll, isn't it?
Yes. Although, mind you, a rogue poll is not something which he invented. Rogue poll is a term which is used by political parties in the run-up to elections to discredit polls that don't suit them.
Fair enough. No, I do understand. What I'm trying to say is that by using that word rogue poll, probably again questioning the credibility of that whole polls, which and probably the way we are seeing right now that these parties, they are around National is trailing at 26%. This is far more.
It's worse than
it's worse than those polls.
But then these things might improve.
Fair enough, as the night goes on. And what I'm seeing is, so probably now coming back to, like, we have spoken a lot about these polls and to expect. Can I quickly touch base with you that why do you think there is so Jacinda wave, so much of Jacinda wave? So what are those factors? Can you quickly rehash?
I think one is happenstance. Definitely, we've had three major occurrences which have happened. We had Christchurch, we had the Whakaari volcanic eruption, which I think she did very well, and also COVID, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have got a caller who might be joining us soon. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, with whom I'm speaking?
Hello, Shekhar speaking.
Oh, hi, Professor Bandyopadhyay. How are you?
I'm good.
Hello. Thanks for joining, Professor. A very good evening to you, and how are you today?
Hello.
Oh, I think we have got a caller there. Sorry. Hello. I cannot hear you. Can you speak a little bit more louder, please?
Yes. Sorry, whom I'm speaking with? Is it Mahesh?
No, this is Sandeep and Dave from Indian Weekender Studio. I'm assuming you are speaking to us. I didn't get your name.
Oh, hi, Sanjeev. Yeah. This is Guru Kandola from Logic Finance.
Great. Guruji, thanks for your call. So, बताइए, आप चुनाव के नतीजे आपके सामने आने लगे हैं और आप जो एक्सपेक्ट कर रहे थे वही देख रहे हैं या कुछ और?
जैसा एक्सपेक्टेशन किया था वही वैसा ही आ रहा है, तो बेसिकली वही सेम जैसा एक्सपेक्टेशन था वैसा ही हो रहा है सर.
बिल्कुल जी.
लेबर वैसे ही है, लेबर ही लेके जा रही है, व्हिच वाज एक्सपेक्टेड एज वेल, क्योंकि काफी बड़ा जो वेव था लेबर की तरफ इस सब मूव कर रहा था और वैसा ही रिजल्ट्स में देखने में भी नजर आ रहा है अभी.
हेलो,
आई थिंक थैंक्स गुरुजी. हम आपसे बात करते रहेंगे, हमारे साथ आप जुड़े रहिए. हमारे एक गेस्ट पैनलिस्ट हमको ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं वेलिंगटन से. प्रोफेसर शेखर, कैन यू हियर मी?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks for joining us from Wellington. How are you feeling today?
I'm fine, thank you.
Excited, I would say. Are you hearing something, like, are you seeing something that you were hoping or envisaging to happen, or you had thoughts otherwise?
I mean, after the last two opinion polls, there is very little surprise left for this election. And the early results shows that it is going that same way. And the last two poll results showed that there was a lot of gap between Labour and National, more than the two-digit gaps. And the early results showing that it's going the same way. Nothing miraculous happened. So we are possibly heading towards Labour-led government. So now the surprise is to find out whether it will be Labour-only government or a coalition government. I'm hoping that it will be a coalition government because in the history of MMP, a single party getting majority never happened, not just in New Zealand, but in other countries where MMP is in force, like Germany, for example. And so if that happens, it will be the first. So let's see. I mean, that the surprise now possibly lies in that.
Right.
So, Professor, what are the implications of a single majority government? There's been criticism that it's almost like a dictatorial kind of powers that party has. It doesn't have to listen to anybody else. It can ram through its proposals, which defeats the very purpose of the MMP system. What do you think? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, a single party government within the MMP defeats the very purpose of MMP. MMP is meant to give the minorities a voice in the governance of the country. And this is a system where not a single vote is wasted. I mean, whoever you vote for, that party gets represented in the parliament. And the majority party has to, the major party, the mainstream, more bigger parties have to align with smaller parties and therefore be more accommodative of the opinion of the minority communities. Now, dictatorial or not, I don't know, because any democratic system has its own checks and balances. Yeah. And so, and particularly in a country like New Zealand, it is difficult for any party, even if it has an absolute majority in the parliament, will be difficult to become autocratic or dictatorial, because there will certainly be an opposition which will raise questions. There will be opinion polls and everything. There are checks and balances within the democracy.
Well, in that
so I'm not afraid of dictatorial power or autocratic power, but in terms of representation of political opinion, it will only be one kind of political opinion which will be represented in the country's governance. That will kind of defeat the purpose of MMP. That's the only hazard remaining there. But I have a feeling, even though Labour Party gets a single majority in the parliament, more than 60 seats, 61 seats in the parliament, I think it will try to build a broader consensus and bring some minor party, particularly the Green Party, on board. Although Green Party in that kind of situation will have less of a say in policy decisions, but nevertheless, I would think Labour would like to build a consensus kind of politics.
Sure.
So,
well, yes, Professor, I'm tempted to ask a couple of more questions on that, but I have just to stop you and park aside and just have to confirm and check with one of our viewers who had called us online. Guru, aap hame sun pa rahe hain? Okay, I think yes, probably he has left us. We will hope that he will give us a call again. So going back to Professor, as you have been saying about this Jacinda Ardern-led Labour Party storming back and most likely a single largest party. So what do you think? Was it just because of Jacinda Ardern's personal popularity, or do you think there was some substance in the policies towards centre-left side, and New Zealand was probably ready to grab those policies and the offerings?
My feeling is more about Jacinda Ardern's charismatic leadership, because what has happened in New Zealand, I mean, this is my reading of New Zealand politics, over the last more than 2 decades, the two mainstream parties both have moved to the center.
Yes.
And as a result of that, there is very fine distinctions between the policies of the two parties as they stand now. I mean, I was watching the last leaders debate. So in the very last moment, both the leaders were given 1 minute to speak straight to the voters. And first Jacinda Ardern spoke, and then Judith Collins came and she spoke. And after both of them had spoken, I was thinking that both of them were saying more or less the similar things. So in terms of, I mean, there are finer distinctions, but in terms of the basic philosophy of the policies, economic development, things like that, I mean, they are more or less the same.
Well,
So ultimately, in New Zealand politics over the years, it has come to the leadership question. I mean, for a long time, National Party had a very charismatic leader in John Key, and he was riding on the crest of publicity. And now National Party is going through a leadership crisis. They had a change of leadership in the last 1 year. 3 leaders came and went. So, and even I hear that within the National Party, there are people who are not very comfortable with Judith Collins's leadership, and things are coming up on the surface. So on the other hand, Jacinda Ardern has been functioning very well. I mean, she just within a 3-year term, she has managed 3 major crises: a terrorist attack, a volcano eruption, and a pandemic, which is once in a 100-year event. And in the meanwhile, she had a baby as a woman. I mean, she had shown that she had that element to be a very charismatic leader. So I believe this is part of that. And one of the major reasons why is this wave is the COVID management. I mean, there has been a lot of criticism from the opposition party, from the media about COVID management, the flaws and gaps in COVID management. But when one looks at the situation within an international perspective, when we look at the United States of America, when we look at UK, when we look at Europe, we realize that we live in a very safe haven.
Absolutely.
I mean, in a country for COVID had only 25 people died in a country of 5 million.
So that tells us that our New Zealanders and New Zealander voters are far more smarter than the media gives them the credit to, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, I was at one point becoming very critical the way New Zealand media was finding flaws, and the way they were responding, they made the government more jittery.
It was baseless.
Some of the allegations were very flimsy allegations. I mean, we were losing international perspective.
That's right.
I mean, if we look at the situation internationally, we can realize that it was managed very well, and the voters, New Zealand voters, can see for themselves.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And sometimes the demands made by the opposition parties, and of course supported by some sections within the media, was that they forgot the vision that this government was dealing with a global pandemic, and the expectations and the comparisons that were being made from countries like Taiwan in Asia, who had a history of dealing with those kind of bigger pandemics for 2 decades, and probably the kind of comparison that were being made, and I would say an impression was being created that government should be ready to create an institution to deal with the pandemic rather than having a hands-on approach and deal with the crisis.
And also remember
And what
that-
happened because of the skepticism, I think government overreacted on certain issues, like allowing people to come in. And particularly, they were very, very ruthless about not allowing anyone on a temporary visa or something like that. And I don't think they did not take any risk at all
Yeah, yeah.
because of the skepticism which was coming in. So in a way, that skepticism became counterproductive. Obviously, the opposition and the media will have to ask right kind of questions, whether there are enough PPEs or enough testing of the border officials and
Professor,
so on.
yes, we will keep on talking to you, and I'm sure I can see Dave is really wanting to ask a couple of more questions to you. So please stay with us. What we are trying to do is trying to connect with one of our reporters who is based at the Labour Party's headquarters, and just get the sentiments. What are the feelings
What's
over there?
happening there?
So Rizwan, can you hear us?
Yes, sir, I can certainly hear you.
So what's happening in the Labour's camp? वहाँ कैसा माहौल है?
जैसे कि आप मेरे पीछे देख सकते हैं कि इनसाइड द टाउन हॉल द माहौल जो है बहुत ही it's very quiet over here. To say the right words, it's actually very formal inside here. Just to give you a little bit more perspective, there are two camps set over here inside the Auckland Town Hall. One is next to the cafeteria, and the second one is just behind me, as you can see. तो माहौल दोनों तरफ जो है बहुत अलग सा है. यहाँ पे लोग काफी फॉर्मल तरीके से बैठे हुए हैं, रिजल्ट देख रहे हैं, एक दूसरे से नॉर्मल बातें कर रहे हैं. बट ऑन द अदर साइड जब कैफेटेरिया में जाइए तो जैसे कि रिजल्ट्स आ रहे हैं थोड़े थोड़े, seeing the results, quite a bit of hooting is happening over there.
Yes, we can
कुछ
hear
hooting
that.
अभी कुछ हूटिंग यहाँ भी शुरुआत हुई है. आई थिंक एज यू कैन हियर इट. तो माहौल काफी एक्साइटमेंट का है आज यहाँ पे. And it is evident that the Labour Party supporters are very, very excited about this night.
So आप हमारे कीवी इंडियंस कम्युनिटी के कुछ सपोर्टर्स दिख रहे हैं आपको वहाँ?
Unfortunately, यहाँ पे कीवी इंडियन सपोर्टर्स बहुत कम दिख रहे हैं. एंड जितने हैं यहाँ पे, आई कैन प्रॉब्ली नेम देम इन ऑन माय फिंगर्स. गिन के 4 या 5 लोग यहाँ पे मुझे दिखे हैं जो कीवी इंडियन कम्युनिटी से बिलोंग करते हैं और वो लेबर सपोर्टर्स
Just
हैं.
to add on that, for the benefit of our viewers, that most of our Kiwi Indian community members, they have gone to individual MPs post-election events. I think Priyanka Radhakrishnan का इवेंट अलग जगह हो रहा है. हमारे लोकल माउंट रॉस्कल के MP जो है माइकल वुड, उनका इवेंट अलग जगह हो रहा है. So शायद इसीलिए मे बी आफ्टर 8 and 8:30, once they get their results out there, probably you will be able to see more Kiwi Indian community members rushing in to that headquarters.
Absolutely.
तो ठीक है रिजवान, आप हमारे साथ बने रहिए. हम आपसे थोड़ी देर बाद दोबारा बात करेंगे. आई थिंक वी हैव टू मूव and go and speak to our team member Leena, who is at the National Party headquarters. Leena, can you hear us?
Yes, Sandeep ji, how are you?
I am very good, thanks. And I need to ask you how you are finding there. वहाँ कैसा माहौल है नेशनल पार्टी के हेडक्वार्टर में?
माहौल यहाँ पर बस जम रहा है. धीरे धीरे लोग आ रहे हैं यहाँ पर और ऑलमोस्ट लोगों ने यहाँ पर आना शुरू कर दिया है अंदर इनसाइड. पहले वो कैफेटेरिया में थे, लेकिन इसके बाद अब वो धीरे धीरे हॉल में आ रहे हैं. एंड जैसे कि आप देख रहे होंगे, यहाँ पर लोग इंजॉय कर रहे हैं. दे आर टॉकिंग टू ईच अदर एंड दे ऑल आर वेरी एक्साइटेड अबाउट टुडेज रिजल्ट. दे हैव बीन टॉकिंग अबाउट लाइक हु इज गोइंग टू विन. बट ऑब्वियसली यहाँ पर नेशनल पार्टी का सेंटर है, तो यहाँ पे लोगों को एक्सपेक्टेशन नेशनल पार्टी से ज्यादा है. बट यस, यहाँ पे माहौल छा रहा है. एंड आप देख सकते हैं कि यहाँ पे धीरे धीरे लोगों ने आना शुरू कर दिया है. अभी लीडर्स नहीं आए हैं, लीडर्स की वेट हो रही है. बट जैसे लीडर्स आएंगे, आई थिंक और ज्यादा माहौल गर्म हो जाएगा यहाँ पर.
बिल्कुल. और हमारे कीवी इंडियन कम्युनिटी के कुछ मेंबर्स और सपोर्टर्स आपको अभी वहाँ दिखना शुरू हुए कि नहीं?
अभी नहीं. आई थिंक दे आर गेटिंग रेडी फॉर दैट. सो अभी तो धीरे धीरे लोग आ रहे हैं. बट यस, यहाँ पर अपने इंडियन कम्युनिटी के लीडर्स तो नहीं हैं, बट अलग अलग मीडिया से लोग हैं और उनके सपोर्टर्स आ चुके हैं.
बिल्कुल. ये जैसा कि हम दर्शकों को बता रहे थे कि हमारे जो कीवी इंडियन एमपीज हैं, और शायद मोस्टली सभी एमपीज हैं, वो अभी 6 से लेकर शायद 8 या 8:30 तक वो अपने अपने इलेक्ट्रेट में पोस्ट इलेक्शन इवेंट्स वहाँ पे ऑर्गेनाइज कर रहे हैं. और शायद 8 and 8:30 के बाद, डिपेंडिंग ऑन हाउ देयर पार्टी इज फेयरिंग एंड हाउ दे आर फीलिंग, probably they will be rushing to their party headquarters. So लीना, आप हमारे साथ बने रहिए ऐसे ही, और हम कुछ देर बाद दोबारा लौटेंगे आपसे बात करने के लिए. थैंक यू वेरी मच. एंड वी विल move back to our esteemed panelist, Professor Shekhar. Professor Shekhar, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Great. So as you would have heard, the mood inside the two parties camp, and probably going back to what we were talking about, जैसा कि you were saying that both the parties, they are coming back to probably the center. So is it fair to say that now in New Zealand politics there is no divide between center left liberal progressivism and center right political conservatism?
No, there is a difference. There are differences. I mean, there are parties which are more on the left or more on the right. I think the ACT Party is now more on the right, and the Greens are more on the left. And the Greens have moved from their preoccupation with environmental issues into social issues. And so the Greens are more very clearly on the left. And that is why I was saying that a Labour Green coalition would remain on the left, or a national act coalition would more stay on the right. So the mainstream parties have come closer, so to say.
Yeah,
So it is the smaller parties which are more clearly characterized as left or right, and they would keep these mainstream parties on either side of the divide. So we now use more left of center and right of center rather than leftist or rightist.
Yeah, just on the point of the possibility of Labour getting an absolute majority, which would be unprecedented. But that's it's a bit ironic because Labour, according to under Jacinda's leadership, is all about inclusivity and diversity. And in the parliament, they're going to be all single without any diversity if she gets the whole majority for herself and for the Labour Party. So that's quite ironic.
Yeah, definitely it is.
Yes, I mean, that is why I think even if Labour gets absolute majority in the parliament, Labour will try to build a broader consensus.
I think so too.
And it will get Green Party into some kind of coalition arrangement.
As they say, with great
That's
power
my
comes great
expectation.
responsibility.
Yes. I mean, that is my expectation, and I think that is the indication which they have also been giving. But obviously, Labour never does or did in the past any deal before the election, and so they obviously didn't do any deal with any party as such. But I have an expectation, and that's my reading of the situation, that even if Labour wins as a single party, it will have some kind of a arrangement, understanding with the Greens.
Professor, you have been doing a lot of work in the space of India and New Zealand, understanding between the two countries for many years. How do you see, this is changing with the change in government, especially in this post-COVID atmosphere?
Before Professor answers that question, for the benefit of our Kiwi Indian audiences, I would just like to add on what they've said, that Professor Sekhar Bandapadhyay is the founding director of New Zealand India Research Institute that is based in Victoria University of Wellington. It is a premium research institute that brings together and do the most of the research in improving the bilateral relation between India and New Zealand. So you are in that privileged leadership position to provide us the insight. Professor.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, so far as India-New Zealand relationship is concerned, now these foreign policy, particularly bilateral, regarding bilateral relations, are based on bipartisan consensus. Both the mainstream political parties, they are more or less agreed on this point. And I can say the kind of policies which were initiated during John Key's period, when the national government was in power, were more or less continued in the same form when the Labour, New Zealand First, and Greens came into power as a new coalition. So the same policy is being continued. So there is a lot of continuity in that policy. And because these policies are based on, bipartisan consensus. So I'm not foreseeing any major change in the India-New Zealand relationship because of this election. But the COVID and post-COVID situation it's a very tough time. And there are many challenges ahead, both for India and for New Zealand. India is now facing its own problems. Its economy is in crisis. The COVID situation is still not under control. It's almost out of control at the moment. So, and India will need a lot of time to stabilize these situations. And until then, the relationships will remain on hold because travel will not be open between the two countries as it was before. And the trade relations, at the moment, there is a major disconnect between the two governments' attitude to trade. I mean, the current government of India is not that much in favor of trade. It wants more foreign investments, whereas New Zealand foreign policy is more geared towards trade. It is not really that interested in foreign investment because New Zealand itself has a problem of getting capital. So there is a bit of disconnect there, but there are other possibilities. One of the possibilities which we're developing, that is the educational exchanges, and that will now be on hold. I mean, at least for another year or so. I'm quite frustrated. I mean, our institute had a number of programs in India which cannot go ahead, and we don't know when again we'll be able to visit India. So,
Yeah, I think quite well said, Professor. And most of your commentaries, as I said, well, talking about the world, talking about the trade, and talking about the future of bilateral relations at this critical juncture of COVID time. I think, as me and Dave were earlier, we were talking that we are facing major disruptions, and probably from here onwards, we are going to see a lot of deviations and departure from the traditional policies, traditional way of doing trade and bilateral relations. We don't know how the borders will be opening. So your commentary is quite apt, and we need to take a pause and see how these relationships will evolve. But coming back to elections and the domestic focus, what is your reading about the Kiwi Indian community? How and what are their challenges? What are their challenges under the previous first term Labour government, and what can they expect in the next Labour government?
First of all, I mean, Kiwi Indian community is now very diverse. We cannot really talk in terms of the interest of the community. I mean, there are many groups, many interest groups within the community, and their interests are very divergent. I mean, first of all, there is a difference between the Kiwi Indians who are citizens and permanent residents. They have one kind of problems. And there is also now a very large group of Indians who are temporary visa holders, and their problem is very different from the problems that the citizens and the permanent residents are facing. The citizens and the permanent residents have the same kind of problem which any other citizen has, that the coming challenge is the economy. Many of the members of the community have lost jobs. I know some of them personally, and it's going to be very hard time for that. So they will be looking forward to what this government comes up with, the economic recovery plan. So that's one of the general problems which everyone shares. But more particularly, I think Indians who are on temporary visas, they have some real problems. And I will hope that the new government, whichever government comes to power, will look at their issues more sympathetically. And so far as the more permanent residents and citizens are concerned, there are also two migration issues, that is about parent visas and spouse visas. And just today, I saw a statement from Priyanka Radhakrishnan saying that the next government, Labour government, will look at those two issues and make those rules in line with the best international practice.
Definitely. Well, that is a one area where we have got a lot of work to do. All the leaders within the community, and they will have to liaise well with the government of the day.
That's right.
And yeah, we will continue to speak on that, Professor. But I think, Dave, have you got any latest update of the numbers, how we are getting?
I think the trend is holding. Labour is really leading at some polls. I mean, some stats are showing that they might get 66 seats at the end of the day.
66. Okay.
This is outright majority.
Which is an outright majority.
Yep,
then,
that's
it can
outright.
change with only,
that's very comfortable majority.
20% only counted or 25% counted. So there's some time to go. But ACT has come out very well, and we just had a very ebullient speech to his supporters from its leader, and also Chloe Swarbrick, which she, for the hotly contested Auckland Central seat, she is leading against Labour. So that's another,
another news. And
What is the Greens party situation?
Greens Party is
I think, yeah, Chloe
is ahead,
yeah.
8%,
Well,
showing
Chloe
8%.
Schwabig's vote, probably the lead would have been far more important if Green would have been polling less than 5%. Because as our audiences would know that to get into the parliament, you have to have a minimum threshold of 5% party votes or at least one electorate seat. So just for the benefit of our audiences, at one stage where experts and pollsters, they were saying that if Green Party is going to perform worse than their opinion polls and get less than 5% votes, then probably their political future in parliament would be dependent on how Chloe Schwabig performs in that Auckland Central seat. So the good thing for the Green Party is that they both are performing well. Chloe Schwabig is holding ahead, which was previously held by National Party's Nikki Kay. And so she's likely to win that electorate seat. And but on the other hand side, Green Party is also holding it comfortably around at 6.3%. So talking about these smaller parties, as you said, Dave, that ACT Party is really doing well, which is probably its historically highest performance. So going by the vote percentage, how many seats can we expect from ACT Party in the parliament?
I think about 10 or
about 10 or so, isn't it? So, Professor, can we get your views on what actually contributed in the rise of ACT Party in these elections?
My reading of the situation is that it's the National Party which has been bleeding. I mean, some of the supporters who were more kind of diehard conservative and right-wing, I mean, they found that the National was being too soft or whatever. I mean, and also National Party's leadership crisis was not a good look for anyone who was sitting on the fringe of the supporting network. So I believe many of the supporters of National Party has moved towards that. And I would also think that some of the supporters of New Zealand First, there are many conservatives supporters within the New Zealand First, and some of them may have moved towards ACT. I mean, I'm not sure what happened, but I have a suspicion that is what has happened.
So would you have any view or expectation that some segments of new migrants, including from our Kiwi Indian community, would have actually voted for ACT Party? Do you think so?
I have no, I don't think so. Right. I mean, okay. It's ACT is mostly based in the support base of conservative, mostly white population.
Right, that's a great answer. Sorry, I will have to cut you off, Professor, for a little while. I will have to go and join Rizwan at the Labour Party's headquarters, where probably they have got Kiwi Indian candidate Baljeet Kaur, who is standing from Port Waikato electorate. Rizwan, are you there? I think we have got Baljeet ji. Baljeet ji, आप मुझे सुन पा रही हैं? I think Baljeet is muted. Baljeet जी, आप मुझे सुन पा रही हैं?
हाँ जी, yes.
हाँ जी, नमस्कार.
नमस्कार.
सबसे पहले तो
सत श्री अकाल.
सत श्री अकाल जी. सबसे पहले तो आपको बधाई हो. अभी आपकी लेबर पार्टी काफी आगे चल रही है. कैसा माहौल है? कैसा आपको फीलिंग लग रहा है वहाँ?
It's amazing environment. बहुत ही खुशी वाला environment है because we are at 65 seats now and 34 for national. सारे बहुत ज़्यादा excited है क्योंकि even जड़ियाँ seats भी पहला हमेशा even नहीं सीसी के लेबर पीछे सी उन्ना ते भी लेबर लीड कर रही है.
जी बिल्कुल सही बात है. और अगर इस तरीके से थोड़ा और चलता रहा तो हो सकता है मतलब आप भी आप I think the way you are placed in that list you would also be going to the parliament. So how anxious you are at the moment? आप सुन पा रही हैं मुझे बलजीत?
नहीं. हेलो
बलजीत जी, मैं आपसे ये पूछ रहा था कि अगर इसी तरीके से लेबर आगे चलती रही तो देयर इज अ लाइक्लीहुड दैट यू कुड आल्सो एंटर इनटू द पार्लियामेंट एज पोर्ट वाइकाटो's लिस्ट एमपी. So how anxious are you?
नहीं मैं लिस्ट पे नहीं हूँ भाई. So but I was only a candidate this time.
जी.
So but फिर भी it's a tight competition at the moment. Whatever the results come in, मैं पहले lead कर रही थी.
जी.
अभी it's only 200 votes that I'm behind.
चलिए
With national.
नहीं बहुत बढ़िया. It's not a big gap, I would say. And by all means, we want our Kiwi Indian MPs to enter into parliament regardless of the party that they represent.
Yes.
So
Gaurav Sharma is leading in Hamilton West, so he will be in.
that's a very good news. So
Yes.
thank you very much for keeping us updated. And we will come again and speak to you, Baljeet. Thanks for joining us. We will have to go and speak to another guest who is joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think, we are not able to connect to Prashant yet. So we will go back and speak to Professor. So,
Professor, just, on the India relationship, there is a third factor which has come up post-COVID, not so much in a pronounced way for New Zealand, but, China is now in the mix, and there seems to be a little bit of a shift in the thinking of several countries in favor of India, just because of the the kind of negative publicity that China has had around COVID. Now, do you think that would be a factor in the New Zealand-India relationship anytime soon?
I don't think that will be a major factor, but it is a factor, because what I can say, I mean, for a while I have been leading the New Zealand delegations for Track 2 diplomatic dialogues with India. And from time and again, New Zealand's close relationship with China has come up for discussion.
Yes.
Where New Zealand's position is that, I mean, New Zealand wants China in the dialogue. So New Zealand's position is that it doesn't help that you just shut the door of dialogue with China. It is much better to have China on the dialogue table, and that can ease things. But India has a more kind of tough position vis-a-vis China because of the border conflict. But I think over the last few months, I'm not a specialist on the India-China relationship, but my understanding, broad understanding, and in our institute, we have a very good expert on the India-China relationship, Dr. Manjeet Pardesi. What Dr. Pardesi tells me, that this is a relationship which will go on as a blow-hot, blow-cold relationship for a while. Both the countries have big stakes in maintaining the relationship.
That's a great input, Professor, I would say. And probably we will have to leave that for another night. We will have to bring back our focus to this important moment over here. And I think our all Kiwi Indian audiences, they are watching this, how this election is unfolding. And from what we have heard, that one of our Kiwi Indian MP, one of our Kiwi Indian candidate from Labour Party, Gaurav Sharma, he is leading ahead. And in Hamilton. And that has been so far a traditionally blue seat. So that's a quite, I would say, quite a good development. So on that development, Professor, I will have to take permission from you. Thanks for joining us tonight and sharing your valuable input. It was really great. We will connect again probably in a couple of days to analyze more about this astounding victory of Jacinda Ardern Labour Party. So thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Pleasure
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
Sure. And with that, probably we will quickly move to our next panelist. Who
but before that, Sandeep, you just said that Hamilton is turning from blue to red, and that is the story elsewhere in provincial New Zealand as well.
Oh,
it is quite, as the results are coming in, I was just scrolling through it, and I was seeing that a lot of blue is becoming red, and that is the so-called farmer lobby, which National Party was trying to appeal, saying that Labour was anti-farmer and that sort of a thing. So
and
it's
I think
obviously not worked.
that is a very big development, isn't it? And
Yes,
probably yeah, that was a big development out there. The provinces, they have always been believed to be more conservative and supporting the political and socially conservative things,
That's right.
which probably leads us to conclude that this election has become or was always a COVID election, and probably people all around the country, they are just appreciating and rewarding Jacinda Ardern's leadership in managing the COVID.
Absolutely.
So on that, probably we will go and speak to our next panelist who is joining us and have been waiting us very patiently. So thanks for joining us, Prashant. You have been very kind and patient in waiting for us, and just letting our viewers know about Prashant that as we have said previously as well, that he is president of Marathi Association here in Auckland, but more than that, he's a very ardent and keen observer of politics. So welcome to our virtual studio, Prashant. How are you?
Thank you so much. Well, thanks for having me on the show.
Just to add a little bit about Prashant's other achievements, he has been running Mai Tai, which is one of the most prominent charitable trusts promoting Indian culture here in New Zealand for the last several years. And he's been also running the New Zealand Indian cricket
thing,
tournament for years, and he does it completely selflessly. And of course, he's a very good entrepreneur as well, and runs the catering business called Satwik.
All right. Well, that's a great news, great information about Prashant, and probably that will ensure us that he is going to bring some diverse views, opinions, all amalgamated into one. So, Prashant, you have been following, I think, how this election results are unfolding. So, what's your first take on that? Is it something that you were expecting for quite a long time? Are you surprised?
To be very honest, I'm not surprised at the results. The results are being are trending as per what is being expected. What is indeed a surprise, though, is the leap and the Labour has been able to maintain. I mean, in the beginning of the campaign, them at 55, 57, 60% as well. I never thought that they could hold on to that much. They would probably be closer to 47, 48 is what my reckoning was
As the
going to
polls
be.
indicated.
But they are, and at this moment of time, it looks like they are breaching that 50% mark, which is a remarkable achievement for them. Yeah.
So the input that we have got recently is that our Kiwi Indian MP from National Party, Kamaljeet Singh Bakshi, probably he's somewhere around, he's trailing behind in his seat, that is Otahu Panmure, which again is the Labour stronghold seat.
Right.
But I think the number of votes they have probably decreased than probably in the last election. This is yet to be confirmed. My production team and research team, they are going to confirm that. But this is an input. So again, that falls within the broader expectation that these successive polls have set upon us, that National Party would be faring somewhere around 32%. But what we are seeing is that they are performing lower than that, isn't it?
Yes, 26, 27%.
True. So Prashant, your thoughts on this? Why actually National could not even repeat the expectation from the opinion polls?
Personally, I mean, if you ask my straightforward opinion, is that they ran a very negative campaign. I think they refused to acknowledge the fact that this was a COVID election, and that yes, they acknowledged partly and said it's about economy and we are the best ones to deal with it. I think they forgot the fact that 3 years ago, despite having that claim to fame of being expert managing of economy, it was actually the problems of infrastructure, problems with promises that they had done about spendings on economy and getting the health sector, the roading sector, and the housing sector back on track. They had not been able to do it, so they were punished for that in 2017. And it was, I don't know how did they, they kept on hammering the fact that Judith Collins was that it's economy and we are the best ones. Don't look anywhere else. We can solve all your problems. I think that
right. Well, that's a very valid point you have made, Prashant. Spot on over there, and that this was never an election about economy, which National was trying to make. and it was always a
Correct.
COVID election. I think that's a very good starting point, Prashant. We'll come back and talk to you. We'll keep on talking to you. I will have to quickly go and see that
Yep.
we have got Labour Party's MP, Michael Wood, who has joined us from Zoom very kindly. Michael, can you hear us, see us at the moment?
No, it's not yet here. So we can continue with Prashant.
Yeah, sure. So, Prashant, so what do you think probably, is it fair to say that National Party had become kind of rudderless in the last 6 months, ever since COVID stuck upon them, and they never knew which direction or they should be going, and they were absolutely rudderless. Is it a fair criticism?
I would say it's a fair starting point. I think what happened was that they sort of failed to acknowledge the fact that yes, maybe New Zealand was doing something different from what the world was doing, and rather than taking advantage of what they were doing different and how they could rather than coming up with that solution oriented thing that okay, we are looking at different, but how can we do it better, or where are the government or holding the government accountable for shortfalls or gaps in those areas of COVID-19 responses. They kept on focusing on saying that, oh, look, Australia is doing something, US is doing something, and which was not proven at all anyway. So that's where I think they started getting into that whole stuff. Plus, then they became rudderless because their internal strife started. They didn't have faith in their first leadership, so there was a coup. The second leadership didn't last long, and then you had Judith coming into it. Close to an election, and especially in these tough times when a simple message was required about we are caring, we are there, there's nothing to counteract Labour's advancement.
Prashant, what do you think of, we just said that National has had a leadership crisis for, this whole term, and they had to change 3 in the last 6 months or 8 months or whatever it is. And what do you see? How do you see the depth of talent in both parties? I think.
Sorry to interrupt.
We'll have to wait.
Sorry to interrupt, Prashant. We have got
Sure.
Mount Roskill's Labour Party MP, Michael Wood, who has kindly joined us. And from what I'm seeing is that probably he is either in a taxi and probably he's going from his electorate to the party headquarters. Thanks for joining us, Michael. How are you?
Oh, thank you. Look, I'm very pleased to be joining you and looking forward to what I hope is a good night for Labour.
Surely.
It's certainly looking like that.
It is looking like that. And yes,
well, look, it's looking it is looking very positive at this stage. Of course, we don't get too ahead of ourselves, and we'll be waiting for our leader, Jacinda Ardern, to speak a bit later in the evening to confirm where things are at. But certainly the indications at this stage, with around 20% of the vote counted, that it looks like there's going to be a strong result for Labour, which I think is a real vindication of the hard work of our leader, of our team and our candidates all around the country.
Definitely. And Michael, as they say, that with great power comes great responsibility. So if Labour is able to form government on its own, which seems quite likely now, so how you are going to take that added responsibility now?
Well, look, I think there's no doubt that if Labour is re-elected tonight, that we'll be accepting that result with a great deal of humility. We're very conscious of the fact that this has been a tough year for New Zealand, that we still face a global pandemic, that we have the work of building an inclusive rebuild ahead of us. Those are the things we campaigned on. Achieving those things, none of them are easy. So if we do receive the mandate to form government at the end of tonight, we'll be applying ourselves to those tasks with humility, and we'll be getting to work as soon as we can. But as I say, we'll just wait for the full results to come in first.
Oh, Michael, you just mentioned inclusive, and Labour is all about diversity. And if Labour gets an absolute majority, that kind of is a little bit ironical that it's going to be exclusive in the Parliament with the power thing. So how are you going to dispel that kind of perception if you indeed end up getting the majority?
Well, look, I think what you'll actually see is that if a Labour caucus is elected with a strong vote, as we're seeing indications of at this stage, that we'll actually have a caucus which is diverse, which reaches into every corner of New Zealand society and will bring a massive range of experiences and worldviews to bear on the next government if we are elected. So I think that within Labour, you'll actually see that there'll be good discussion, good ideas, and a diversity of thoughts. But the other thing I would say is that the leadership style of Jacinda Ardern that you've seen over recent years has been a fundamentally inclusive leadership style. She's reshaped the idea of what effective leadership is, from this idea that you just have a tough guy who tells everyone what to do, to a style of leadership that's about listening, that's about reflecting, that's about bringing people along. So I've got no doubt that if we are re-elected, it will be an inclusive government.
Well, definitely, there is no argument on that space, Michael. Jacinda Ardern's leadership has been quite appreciated globally in that respect. Now, talking about the next 3 years ahead of you, basically, if there is a strong Labour government, so what will be the focus of this new Labour government for the next term? Have we already prioritized, according to importance, what will be your immediate priority? COVID management, economy, or helping the migrants who are stuck overseas? So can we get your views on that?
Yeah, well, look, I'll start again with, I'll just have to start every response with the rider that if we receive the privilege of governing again, because we are not getting ahead of ourselves, and we'll wait for Jacinda Ardern to comment on that. But if that does happen, then we will be campaigning, we will be governing on the issues and on the leadership that we have campaigned on. And that is about being relentlessly focused on those core issues that you've just mentioned. We still live in a COVID world. So we still need a government that can competently manage our borders, that can keep us safe, that can keep on top of the health response to ensure that we continue to keep COVID out and continue saving the lives of New Zealanders. And then we need to be focused on what an inclusive rebuild looks like. And that's working with all of our communities to make sure that we support small businesses, that we create and protect jobs within our economy, and that we also look to take advantage of some of the opportunities that are ahead of us. So there's a huge amount of work there. There's a lot of policy we've put out. I think about things like the 8,000 new state houses that we've campaigned on, bringing back the training incentive allowance, building 8,000 new state houses, a lot of support for small business that we've campaigned on as well.
Right.
These are the things that we would be looking to roll out if we do govern again after this election.
So basically, we will be seeing a continuation of elimination strategy in terms of managing the COVID. Borders will remain closed. So when can the temporary migrants who have been ordinarily resident in this country, they can expect probably some kind of pathway to get back into the country? Have we given a thought on that, Michael?
Well, you're quite correct that our approach is an elimination strategy. We must be very clear on this. This is one of the reasons for New Zealand's success. As opposed to other countries who said that they would live with the virus, we said we would follow an elimination strategy and stamp out COVID. And that is why we've been so successful, combined with the work of all 5 million New Zealanders. So we will be keeping to that strategy. Of that, I have no doubt. Within that, because of our success, because we don't have COVID in the community now, we do have a more open economy than virtually anywhere else in the world. And we do now have the opportunity to look at how we can move forward. So in terms of the borders, we're taking a careful approach. We're taking the public health advice. But for example, we have in recent times started to relax some of the requirements around allowing certain skilled workers back into the country, around allowing repatriation of some people on work visas, and on allowing a small start to international students coming back in. So we're taking an evidence-based approach. We're taking a public health, safety-first approach, but where we can safely move forward and have some relaxations, then that can be looked at.
Sure. Now, one more question about the small businesses, although I'm sure you have already told a lot about that, but a lot of small businesses probably, they are expecting some more robust support from the government. And if Labour government is going to come back, which it's quite likely now, probably would you be considering, would Labour government considering some more additional support for those small businesses?
Well, look, working with and supporting small businesses through 2020 has been a real priority for us. So things like the wage subsidy, the interest-free small business loans, $3 billion in tax relief that we've provided this year, free advice for businesses to get online and get some business advice. There's a lot that we've put in, and we want to keep making sure that we're working with small businesses. In the campaign this year, we announced an extension of interest-free loans. We announced policies in terms of cracking down on the banks who have been rorting some of the card charges, which really harm some of the small businesses. And we'll keep working with them just as closely as we can to make sure that as many small businesses get through the next period, because we're under no illusions. The world economy is going to have a difficult time over the next year. We haven't tried to sugarcoat that. It's not going to be easy. So we'll keep working hand in glove with small businesses to support them and support as many jobs in our economy as possible.
Well, I just heard the word hand. So talking about hand, basically, how will be this Labour government without the handbrake of the last term?
Sorry, you just cut out a little bit. I didn't quite catch you there, Sandeep.
Yeah, well, you won't have a handbrake this time if you get an absolute majority. And,
okay.
That's what,
I think I see what you're
that was
getting
exactly
at.
my question, that if there is no need for coalition here, what is your imperative for consensus building?
Yeah, well, look, that's one of those things that is just not determined yet. As I say, on this election night, we're still only at about 8:15. So I'm not going to make any assumptions about what the composition of Parliament will be and what arrangements we may or may not come to with other parties. That will get a little bit above my pay grade and get me into trouble. That is something that I will have to leave to the Prime Minister. But I will make the point that in this term of government, we've shown that we can work with a range of parties to govern in a real MMP environment. And I know that going into the future, we'll try and work constructively with other parties as and where we can.
Sure. And talking about, again, as you said, you raised the issue about pay grade. So I just thought probably to check with you that have you expressed your thought that would you be getting into cabinet? Have you expressed your interest in any particular portfolio yet?
Well, look, there's one bit of advice that I can provide as the Chief Whip of the Labour Caucus to all of my colleagues, and that is MPs who go and talk in the media about what job they would want will probably shoot themselves in the foot. Again, that's a matter entirely for the leader and for the caucus. And look, the other thing I'd say in all seriousness is, I said before that we want to approach the task of governing, if we have that privilege, with humility. And that means that what we must be focused on is how we serve people. And I don't want to hear any of my colleagues, and I won't indulge in this, talking about ourselves and our own ambitions tonight. We just need to be focused on what we need to deliver for New Zealand.
Well, I think I can see that probably you have reached to Town Hall where you were supposed to reach. So we will let you go now, Michael. Thanks for joining us from the cab. It was a very good commentary on the run, I would say. And thank you very much. And we wish you all the best. And most likely we will hear from you and the Prime Minister, Ardern, very soon.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Sandeep. And thanks to the Weekender for all the great coverage you've provided of this election. And I hope that you have an interesting night watching the rest of the race as we move towards a result later on in the evening.
Definitely.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So while we let Michael go, I also like to acknowledge the patience of Prashant, who has been kindly and nicely waiting. And probably he was smiling on many occasions. So I'm pretty sure that he would have a lot of emanations to share with us as well. But before we shoot another question to Prashant, the latest update that we have got about our Kiwi Indian MP, Priyanka Radhakrishnan, about the Mangakuki electorate. It is, I think, 5 minutes before, at that time, probably 8,094 votes have been counted. And Denise Lee she was leading at 3,643 seats. And Priyanka was closely following her at 3,344 seats. So just a margin of 299 seats. And the good thing is, I would say not the good thing, the other thing is, in the party vote in the same electorate, National is trailing at 28.1%, and Labour is far ahead at 49.2%. So basically, coming back to Dennis Lee's point that you said, so right now what we are seeing is that the voters, they are smart. They are still trying to not penalize Dennis on that and support the way the votes we are seeing. But definitely, in terms of party vote, they are clear where they want to put their votes,
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
That's the beauty of MMP.
MMP. Now, Prashant, you have been hearing very patiently about Michael's comment. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I like his diplomacy actually, and not going ahead of himself. It sounds very funny. If this was an Indian election, everyone, the candidate would have tried to use it for self-bargaining and self-promotion. I was very happy to see this over here, that he was very straight onto it stuff. It's not my place, it's not my position, it's my party leader's job to do it. Shows you the clear-cut demarcation bifurcation of political
Definitely.
boundaries.
And moreover, I would say, like, okay, I do understand and acknowledge the difference between Indian elections and in New Zealand. But I think here is that we are seeing is the impact of Jacinda Ardern's leadership as well. Like when we are seeing that modesty and humility coming right from the top, then probably all their peers and colleagues, they are equally inspired to follow the track, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, absolutely. I mean, to be very honest, one of the things that came out, I'll be very blunt with you. 3 years ago, when Jacinda was in this, took over in this hot seat, me and Dave, in fact, had discussion in his own house about this. And we were sort of, saying that, don't know, it's unknown element, how she's going to fare into this world of politics and be tough. But I think she got those opportunities to show leadership skills, and she grabbed them with both the hands. And I think that's something that stood good in her stead. Unlike some of them, who try to think that political leadership is all about bulldozing things. It's not. It's sometimes compassion, changing your tack as the need goes of the hour goes. And I think that's where Jacinda has come up with flying colors in those last 3 years. Yeah.
And I think she has received praise from it in the last debate. She received praise from it from Judith Collins herself. She says you can't fault her for not giving her all to New Zealand's interests. Which was saying a lot.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, the kind of
that
the
says a
kind
lot.
of
I mean,
no, you go.
yeah, no, go ahead, Sandeep. Yeah.
No. What I was saying that the kind of leadership, the kind and compassionate leadership that Jacinda has demonstrated, and with currently being in picture, it was always going to be tough for any opponent and any national party leader actually to counter that. So basically, they were quite clueless, and I would say that right from very beginning, soon after 2017 elections, they never anticipated this moment. What they were thinking was that probably Jacinda would fail because of her lack of substance automatically, and National won't have to do anything remarkably different because they were sitting around at 46% votes. So that probably, I would say, put National Party into some kind of complacency, and they never did any ground homework in the lead up to this election, isn't it?
Not true. I mean, that's the same case. It's like what happened in the U.S. elections, where the Democrats kept harping about that we were the popular vote winner, we were the popular vote winner. The same story was repeated over here, that the mandate was not to a Labour government, but mandate was to us. And they lived in that dream, basically circle of theirs, saying that, oh, we didn't get the mandate, and they expected the three different parties with complete disparate sort of agendas. Maybe Greens and Labour had experience of working together, but NZ First was always the time bomb in that whole three-party relationship, and they expected that to fail. But hats off to even Winston Peters. He didn't upset the entire apple cart in those 3 years with anything that was out of the line. A few things here and there, but he didn't basically push the government into taking any decisions which was sort of anti towards Labour, or Labour could not go back to their electorate. While as National kept on about thinking that they will fall under their own weight, with no strategy to say that, right, here is what we missed out last time, and here is our response to the fallings that we had, or the failings that we had 3 years ago.
Prashant, one question. Would this election have been different and more equitable, and in fact more, two-sided or three-sided or four-sided, had it not been for COVID?
Absolutely. I think if it had not been for COVID, then the economic situations and the economic woes that would have come up in front in terms of housing, in terms of inflated house pricings, not fulfilling on that, the question of small businesses sufferings, and also minimum wage, the excessive minimum wage increases, which is not palatable to the SME sector, that would have had an impact. And
So
that would have
COVID
had
put a
a much
whole
different
fog
impact.
under all those issues.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it the word fog, because fog would mean it is not visible. I think what has happened is people have sort of evaluated and said, right, let's take this with a pinch of salt. Yes, it's difficult time, but then so is the world is difficult, and what we need is compassion. And who is the leader who is compassionate? So maybe they have given that benefit of doubt rather than fog. So I wouldn't call it as a misleading vote which has come in favor of Labour, but it's a conscious decision by the voters to say that, look, we will give them a chance, let them come up, let's see how do they come up with a solution post-COVID kind of scenario.
But that's because of COVID.
That's because of COVID, of course. COVID is the underlying factor. That is undeniable. That has helped Jacinda a lot.
Sure.
Sure. I just want to interrupt Prashant, and just want to tell our viewers that we are trying to speak to Minister David Parker, like our reporter who is in Auckland Town Hall. And so at some stage we might have to quickly go and speak to him whenever Minister is available there. But in the meantime, what we have noted is that National's deputy leader and campaign man in charge, Jerry Brownlee, was speaking in an interview, and the manner in which he was speaking, it is a lot of experts, they agree that they have almost conceded the defeat.
Yeah, he is losing his seat, in fact.
Oh, right. Okay. He's losing his seat as well. So I think, yeah, probably we also need to change the tack of this conversation and talking less about elections and results and more about how this strong Labour government would look like and what it would mean for our Kiwi Indian community. So, Prashant.
I think the biggest challenge is what Dave actually, when you're alluding to Michael Woodhouse, the question was very important. If they are going to govern alone, how will they manage that diversity plank which they talk about? And I think they need to really, really work around with different communities and different ethnic groups to really, really get along with them. And our interest, really typical Indian, we would love to see that there is proper representation for the community in this Labour government and not a token one.
Right. So what the question before we broke off when Michael Wood came in, I was asking you, what do you think of the depth of talent in both parties?
Sadly, I think that is something that, remember, Sandeep, when we had our discussion, the nurturing of candidates and, bringing it from a lower level. I think that is something that is really, really lacking at this moment of time in both the parties. Yeah. I think if David Parker is here, you can talk to him and then we can continue our discussion on that.
Yeah. No, he's not yet here.
Rizwan, can you hear us?
Okay. I'll quickly sum up into that one. I think the biggest thing is that the depth is still not there. These 3 years would be an ideal time to nurture and bring it up and create that next level of talent which is required, wider community, wider reach, and a diverse stuff in both the leading parties.
Rizwan,
not just Labour. Yeah.
Is Minister Parker available with us? Mr. Parker, can you hear us? I think, yeah, we are still struggling to connect with him, but yeah. Sorry, Prashant.
Yeah, I think his mic is off. Yeah.
Oh.
Minister Parker, can you hear us? Not yet, not yet. Hello, David, can you hear us?
I can hear you, yes, loud and clear.
Congratulations. I think the results are more than probably what you were expecting. Is it fair to say that?
No, we're doing a bit better. You never take it for granted. It really is a Labour landslide. And although you dream of it, you sort of pinch yourself until it's real.
Surely. So again, the same question that we have been trying to ask everyone in the Labour caucus, that what the new Labour government would be doing differently from the last term?
Well, we'll be continuing on our program. We'll be trying to make sure that the working people have decent incomes, that we have good social services that we can rely upon, and education and health, and that we keep on top of COVID so that we can keep it out of the country and stamp out any clusters that break out until we get a vaccine.
Sure. And in terms of trade, David, you have been really doing quite well during the COVID time by trying to keep the sea routes open and the trade routes open. So can we expect to see some major innovation in terms of how we have been doing our trade in the post-COVID world?
Well, you're quite right that we've put a lot of effort into keeping air routes open. Sea routes have been open as well. Indeed, our goods exports have been up 8%
August to August, despite COVID. So we're doing really well on that front, but we always want to diversify the countries into which our businesses can sell around the world, and we'll be continuing to do that. We've got negotiations ongoing with the European Union, the UK, an upgrade with China, the RCEP agreement. So there's a lot on.
Sure. And most importantly, just before borders were closed after the onset of COVID, you were on your maiden tour to India as a trade minister. You led a business delegation. So what can we expect in the next 3 years? Would you be going again or talking something differently from India in terms of enhancing our bilateral trade?
We don't know who has what portfolio yet, but the Indian trade relationship's very important. They've done wonderfully well at maintaining the production of medicines for countries like New Zealand during COVID, and we look forward to continuing to trade with India and that trade increasing.
Would you see some sort of a shift more toward India?
I've lost you there.
Would you see some sort of a shift? Are you with us? Can you hear us?
Yes, I've got you back now.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see some sort of a shift happening toward India with the kind of scenario we are having internationally with perceptions related to China?
I think it's too early to tell what COVID will do to world trading patterns. I see the IMF in the last weeks come out and said that the post-COVID recession in the world might not be quite as bad as was previously forecast, which would be great. We know that in terms of New Zealand, our own unemployment numbers have not been going up as badly as was predicted, even though they have been going up as a consequence of effects on sort of international tourism and export education.
That's very true, Minister Parker. Now, coming back to our foreign trade and the industry, how it is doing. So what are your thoughts, how Labour government would be doing probably, what are the targets for the next 100 days? What we can expect in terms of trade or international education or in terms of border management? Have we got a plan for the next 100 days?
Well, border management, we'll be continuing to try and manage that as well as we are currently. In respect of how we help our export companies when the border's not open, we're trying to allow some people in to assist with trade connections, but those numbers won't be large for the next 100 days. So we're more reliant than ever on the in-market presence that the New Zealand government, through New Zealand Trade and Enterprise and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, maintains in our network of embassies around the world. That's very important for our exporters who are small to medium size, who don't generally or can't afford to employ in-market staff, and so they're more reliant on intermediaries through the likes of New Zealand Trade and Enterprise.
Sure. And in terms of international students, can we expect any relief or any major plan from government to get them in?
Look, their questions best asked of someone else rather than me. But no, I've got no
Sure.
new information for you on that.
No, sure. Thank you very much, Minister Parker. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time tonight, and we wish you all the best for the rest of your night, which looks to be a great night.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. It's a good night for us.
Looks like it. Yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So yeah, I think that was Minister Parker. Now he was kindly had joined us from Labour's headquarters, that is at Auckland Town House. So we can go back to Prashant and continue our discussion with him.
Yeah, sure.
So Prashant, what are your thoughts on what you heard from Minister Parker? Anything unexpected, or it is a very steady ship moving forward?
I think it's a very steady ship moving forward, and he's a minister, so he's sort of stayed within his remit and tried to talk about COVID, and he's trying to press on that this is where the future is going to look like. He's not one of those who's going to upset the apple cart. So that's
Sure.
I'm not really surprised with what his approach has been.
Right.
Yeah.
So we'll
Steady
just
as she
take, I
goes.
think, 2 more questions with Prashant, and then probably we'll let him go. He has been so kind and gracious to join us. Prashant, my next question was which I have been asking to both MPs and ministers about the first 100 days. So, what are your thoughts on the first 100 days? How the new Labour government would be acting in that first 100 days?
I think the first thing that they really got to take stock of the situation is going to be what can be done in a short term, because it's the first 100 days. What can be done in short term given the COVID situation globally? So what things need to be in place once 100 days are over? So it's not just 100 days, but once it's over, what is the impact globally? So who are going to be our favored trading partners? Where are the opportunities? So probably MFAT and NZTNE will have a key role to play at that particular moment of time to make sure that both our export possibility countries which are existing, or even if there are new things to be tapped into where they can quickly tap in and use them as a wire media, that needs to be in place. Secondly, I think the education sector, which is really being hit very hard, and in the 100 days is really the time when the next term of the education institutes is starting. So they need to have a concrete plan to make sure that sector can benefit from creating a bubble or creating a safe environment for students to be brought into this country.
Yes, and that the same thing applies for fruit pickers and the horticultural industry.
Absolutely, yeah. The season starts in the 100 days. Absolutely, yes.
Right.
And what's your take on what will be happening in the space of temporary migrants who are stuck overseas and waiting patiently for the last 6 to 7 months for this D-Day when elections will be held? Can they expect a little bit more mercy from the current government, and can they expect to be allowed back? What's your take on that?
To be very honest, I'm not too sure, because before this, in November, there was going to be a changes coming to the immigration laws. And given the track of any government, these things don't happen overnight. So they all must be ready with what they want to change and what things they want to implement. That would be, given the clear majority Labour is having, they would be rubber stamping what they want to really do if they want to implement it by November, end of November, when they're talking about, which is 4 weeks from now. If that is going to be happen, I'm not too sure that they are in a position right now. It's going to be good news for everybody, because they are really trying to do away with the fact that if people are not required, then we don't want them here. Is what they have been trying to put that seed up here right now, and they might look at it, and given the clear mandate, they will just go ahead and say that is what we have been mandated for. They'll hide, and now that's a fog they will create.
Correct. And
on that. Yeah.
And also, now everything will be a COVID lens will be applied to it. So
Absolutely.
So
yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be the absolute de rigueur for everyone to apply the COVID lens to almost any policy which is mildly inconvenient.
Absolutely. And the big thing would be, they are going to come back and say, look, we have got a clear mandate. People have believed in us that we are the right people to respond, and this is how we are responding. So they have bought into our 30-year plan, whatever we have said about it, that we will come back into black. So that gives that, the 1 year of honeymoon period, at least for Labour, if the global situation doesn't change much quickly.
Sure. I think, thank you very much, Prashant, for your valuable input. I will have to let you go for tonight, which again, as we say, looks to be a very exciting night. We are going to see one of the historic results in New Zealand's MMP system. And thanks for joining us tonight, Prashant. We will come back and speak to you in a couple of more days when we reassess this election outcome.
Thank you, Prashant.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sandeep and Dave. It was a pleasure having being on Indian Weekender. Good luck and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what we are going to do from now is probably we will go and quickly connect with Rizwan, who will take us a tour to what's happening in the Labour Party's headquarters. Sure. We have already been able to speak to Minister David Parker. We have been able to speak to our MP Michael Wood. And most likely we will be pretty soon, we will be hearing from Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern as well.
Yeah. But we're looking a little bit skewed. We should get some Labour national MPs as well.
Yeah, sure, definitely. We are trying to get it in touch. As I said, our reporter, they are at the national headquarters and they are doing their best to be able to connect with them. And as and when we are able to connect with them, we will surely be going and speaking to them. And what's remaining for the night, we are going to speak to our another esteemed panelist, Sunil Kaushal, who is president of Vaitakre Indian Association. So that's in next 5 to 10 minutes. And let's go and see what Rizwan has to go, and we will take a quick break and we'll come back after 10 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, sir. It's Rizwan from the Labour headquarters. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Yes, Rizwan, we are able to hear you. So what's happening? वहाँ कैसा माहौल है?
As you had mentioned, जैसे आपने के बताया था कि जैसे जैसे इलेक्ट्रेट्स में नंबर्स आते जाएंगे, उसके बाद से हेडक्वार्टर्स में यहाँ पे नंबर्स बढ़ते जाएंगे, और एग्जैक्टली वैसे ही हुआ है. It's quite a celebration around here. Everyone is excited. As you can see behind me, the whole house is crowded with people. And to confirm what you said earlier, that a lot of new Kiwi Indian faces are also being seen, which is they are the supporters who have come to cheer the electorates, as well as Jacinda Ardern.
बिल्कुल सही बात है. आप हमें वहाँ का एक माहौल, एक टूर दिखा सकते हैं रिजवान, कि वहाँ कैसा माहौल है, हमारे लोग वहाँ क्या कर रहे हैं, कितना खुशी और जश्न का माहौल है?
जी जरूर. तो हर 2-4 मिनट में या हर 2-5 मिनट में यहाँ पे हुटिंग हो रही है. एज यू कैन सी, आई जस्ट गो अराउंड द हॉल. लोग, सो दिस इज द, ये यहाँ का नजारा है.
Yeah, it's a sea of red.
It's a sea of red, as absolutely. All right, this is just the formal part of formal side of the headquarters, जहाँ पे थोड़ी सी हुटिंग हो रही है. बट ऑन द अदर साइड जहाँ पे कैफेटेरिया है, वहाँ काफी माहौल और एनर्जेटिक है. People are drinking and cheering for the winning results that they are seeing on the screen, and we should be expecting Jacinda Ardern soon.
That's good. And you're seeing some Kiwi Indians there, Rizwan?
Yes, I can see a few Kiwi Indians around the hall. They are close to some of the ministers and MPs. बलजीत कौर के पास बहुत सारे लोग वहाँ बैठे हुए हैं, जमा हैं, and they are all eagerly seeing the results. As I understand, she has been trailing behind the national candidate very closely.
Yeah.
So I think, Dave, it's time for us to take a quick break and just get our facts right.
Yep.
And we'll come back. And meanwhile, Rizwan, please help us showing a tour about the mood and the sense of celebration out there in the Labour Party camp. And we will come back and speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, sir. We'll join you soon.
लीना कैमरे के आगे उसको बता दो.
start?
Right. Okay. So probably we are looking into a new history being created when we can get our first ever Kiwi Indian electorate MP. And that is coming from, the news is coming from Hamilton West electorate, where Labour Party's Gaurav Sharma is leading ahead by 3,000 votes from his nearest National Party MP, previous MP. And that is a very predominant blue seat. So probably from the last update that we got, with around 50% votes counted, with our Kiwi Indian candidate Gaurav Sharma leaving by 3,000 votes, it is really very optimistic. It looks like that we can have possibly our first ever Kiwi Indian electorate MP.
Yes, I think that's a very big day for Indian MPs. As we say, the other side, the flip side of the thing is that we might not see two of our MPs back in Parliament.
Surely, and that's basically about national parties to
That's
MPs.
national.
Mr. Kanwaljit Singh Baxi, who had been a 4-time MP,
Yes.
and Dr. Parmjit Parmar, who have been a 2-time MP. So from how National Party is polling at the moment,
26%.
how many?
26%.
26%.
It doesn't look likely that either of them will be, according to the list positions,
Sure.
will be back in Parliament.
Sure. And based on how their electorate seats and their list seats are going in, probably they are sitting at around 34 seats in the Parliament, 34 seats in the Parliament, with 22 being electorate MPs and 12 being list MPs. And that is pretty clear that both our two list MPs might not be cutting in.
Might not be, but they might just be in. One of them might just be in.
Yeah,
depending
sure.
on the
And
numbers,
that
the
only
final
depends.
numbers, yeah.
Well, that basically depends, and that won't be decided straight away on the election night
That's
tonight.
right.
How it works here in New Zealand is that what we see is a deluge of retirement, mostly from the party that is losing in the election. So what we can, like, we have already seen probably around 18 to 19 national MPs retiring in last year or so, and that trend could possibly continue, as there would be a wider recognition and acknowledgement within the party that National need wider regeneration and they need a change of team. So in that scenario, when there are some more resignations from the sitting or the elected MP who might have won the election now, in that case, probably our two list MPs, one of them or maybe two, they can very nearly sneak in. And what I'm getting message from our team member from Labour Party's headquarters, that our reporter might be in touch with Auckland Mayor Phil Goff, who has expectedly reached Auckland Town Hall to celebrate Labour Party's grand success, something that he has been personally, of course, hoping for quite long years.
Absolutely.
And so we will quickly go to Rizwan and see if Mayor Phil Goff is still there.
Yeah.
So there is still time. There is still time before we go there. So coming back to Dave, so how do you see this news? Two of our national MPs, they can possibly miss out the bus this time.
Well, there might just be another one with Priyanka Radhakrishnan going neck to neck, literally neck to neck, because they are almost in similar numbers with Denise Lee here in the Onehunga.
Sure. So from last when we checked,
yes,
she
it
was
is
just
almost there.
almost there. Yes.
There's a few tens, not even hundreds. There's a difference of a few tens. So it could go either way. And if Priyanka Radhakrishnan makes it, that'll be another one.
So what does it mean? What does it mean? That will we see? What does it mean for the Kiwi Indian community? Like when these MPs will become electorate MPs, obviously their responsibility will be far more towards their electorate. Does it mean that probably Kiwi Indian community might not be that connected or well represented by those MPs? Will it change anything?
I think it'll probably be the other way around, because the whole of the New Zealand political apparatus will see how politically active and how decisive the Indian community is when it comes to voting. And I think the whole thing will lift the game towards Kiwi Indian citizens, citizens of Kiwi Indian origin.
Sure.
Because people, the political establishment in New Zealand will suddenly see it in new light. That these guys
Definitely.
are
Definitely.
able to exercise their electoral muscle.
Sure. So certainly, I would say exciting time ahead, not only for the country but for the community as well. A lot of things can change. We are trying to connect with our other esteemed panelist, Sunil Kaushal, President of Vaitakre Association. Sunil, can you hear us at the moment? I think we are still struggling to connect with them. Now, coming back to the election updates that we have received so far. Uh, what are your thoughts, Dave? What do you think National Party would do differently from here?
I think the National Party has a lot to do. They will have to hit the reset button. First of the, probably the biggest problem they will have now is to really sort out the leadership tangle. Whereas Judith Collins has quite clearly said that she would not like to go. Clearly uh, there is no case for. I mean, she can't really. I think she's going to find it very hard to convince the whatever remains of a party
Sure.
caucus to say why she should be the leader.
Definitely. Now, I will. Well, that's a good input to get our third panelist join us. Sunil, welcome to our virtual studio. How are you feeling about this election night tonight?
Very good, thank you. Thanks, Sandeep and Dave. Yeah, it's I think it's a historic election given the MMP scenario that we live in, and I think that we are used to for a political party to kind of have a complete sweep. I think they'll probably get about 63 to 65 seats in the parliament, and they can rule by themselves. And I think there's probably a feeling in New Zealand that given the way New Zealand first kind of held the government to ransom, that people are probably sick and tired of it, and they just want some government to make their decisions by themselves.
Certainly it is. And before we jump on and talk about bigger perspective and the entire New Zealand, I think Sunil, I would like you to comment on what's happening within our Kiwi Indian space. Something that me and Dave we have been talking quite startedly, as history is going to be created that we could possibly see one, or if we are lucky, maybe two. First, two electorate Kiwi Indian MPs. Gaurav Sharma is leading in Hamilton West from Labour Party, and Priyanka Radhakrishnan is going on a neck and neck fight in Mount Maungakiki electorate over here. So what will that mean for the Kiwi Indian community, Sunil?
See, I think firstly, good on both of them for putting up a fight, and I wish them both both best. I think if you look at Priyanka's constituency last time, Chloe was standing from there, so she took about 4,000 odd votes. Otherwise, she would have beaten Denise there. And I think she's done hard work on the ground, and hopefully she'll be rewarded, and it'll be great from an Indian point of view, but also for Gaurav Sharma. He has stuck out his neck for the last so many elections out there, being faithful to the party, being faithful to his constituents. And I think, as a Kiwi Indian, he's doing us all proud. Well, both of them are doing proud to the Indian diaspora to say that, that we who have come and made New Zealand homes, and don't forget that we are now Kiwis, but we bring our work ethics, our loyalty, and our passion into politics too. And we have been, which is evident in both of them. They have shown New Zealand. They have shown the mainstream parties that we are capable of representing not only our people but also the wider community, because we are integrated into the community and we are Kiwis. So I think from an Indian perspective, Kiwi Indian perspective, I think it's a great thing. Let us also not forget that they have themselves worked hard to be a part of the community of the mainstream parties, and they've worked their way through. So, kudos to them, well done to them. And from an Indian perspective, Kiwi Indian perspective, it's to show everyone that we are successful in what we do, and we can have a voice if we really work hard.
Sure. So how do you see the composition of the next government? And especially with very little scope or need for consensus if they've got a complete majority? How do you see the inclusiveness which Labour stands for?
Yeah, before
really
Sunil
panning out?
answers, just want to tell our viewers that we might have to cut off at some stage when we are able to connect with our reporter at Labour Party's headquarters, where we are trying to speak to Minister Ginny Salisa and Auckland Mayor Phil Goff. So, Sunil, I might have to interrupt then, but yeah, you go ahead and answer the question, please.
Sure. So, Dave, what were you? Sorry, could you repeat that question again?
Yeah, I was saying with the lower, there's almost no need for Labour to really create consensus to run the country, because it just doesn't need. It can do what it pleases, pretty much. Never a scenario in MMP system. So this is really like an absolute majority where there is no need for consensus. At the same time, Labour says that it is very, and Labour, it makes it very visible to everybody that it's a very inclusive party which includes everybody. But in this case, it doesn't have to in its decision making in Parliament because it's governing alone. What do you think will happen to that?
See, I think Labour will be very, very careful on the latter part of your question. They will want to be inclusive. They will want to hear the voices of the people, but at the same time comes the danger, which is the first part of your question, which is you can be, not in a dictatorship, but in an authoritative way, you can do whatever you want because you have the majority. Because I think they'll be very careful not to do that, because that means they've only got 3 years to govern, and people are quick to judge. And given our term is only 3 years, which is not long enough, people are quick to judge and to change up their mind. So I don't think going forward, Labour Party would, they would be happy that they don't have Greens or they don't have anyone else. I think
that's a very valid point. I will come back to you on that, Sunil. 3-year term, you take a note of that. But I think we will have to go to Auckland Town House, where we have got Mayor Phil Goff, if I'm correct. Mayor Goff, can you hear us?
Well, it's our privilege tonight to be hosting re-elected Prime Minister Jacinda.
Certainly it is, Mayor Goff. I think you have been waiting for quite a long time to see this historic victory of the Labour Party.
Yeah, look, I'm a gold badge member of the Labour Party and a former leader of the Labour Party. So obviously, in a personal capacity, I'm delighted. As Mayor of Auckland, I work with all of our political parties in Wellington, and I know how Judith Collins will be feeling tonight. It's a devastating night for her. She fought a hard fight, and National will rebuild and come back. But I'll be working with all of the political parties. But delighted that I'll be working with my former colleagues in the Labour Party to work together to tackle the challenges that Auckland City, as our country's largest city, face for the future.
Sure. Now, talking about Labour Party's campaigning, Mayor Goff, what we have noted that the manner in which lately Labour Party has been campaigning very intelligently, appealing to the voters who have previously voted for John Key and Bill English.
Let's see if we can get it back.
Can you hear me? Mayor Goff, can you hear us?
Oh, we've got a frozen scene here. Okay, I think we're back. Are we back with you?
Yeah, great. So what I was saying was, can you comment us on the style of campaigning that we have seen in the last couple of months? Well, Jacinda Ardern has obviously led with her kind and compassionate style of politics, but what we have also seen, an intelligent voting appeal being made out by Finance Minister Grant Robertson, where they have been appealing to the soft national voters by reminding them that the current National Party is not the party of greats like John Key and Bill English. So do you think that has the right impact on those soft national voters and compel them to vote for Labour Party?
I watched the last debate very closely, and Jacinda Ardern was making her pitch to the middle of New Zealand politics, the soft National Party voters that voted for John Key, but now have voted for Jacinda Ardern. And I think what Judith Collins was trying to do was to shore up the core of the National Party's support. But the truth is, I think this election was won 12 months ago, when we saw, more than 12 months ago, when we saw that great leadership from Jacinda Ardern after the March the 15th terrorist attacks, how she brought our country together. We were very proud of her. She was she made the world headlines as a compassionate, kind leader who reached out to our Muslim community and said, "You are us," and the Muslim community are part of our community. And then the great leadership for COVID-19. You know, I've watched Donald Trump and I've watched Boris Johnson and I've watched various other people. And, you know, whatever your politics are as a New Zealander, you looked at our Prime Minister and said, there is great leadership. And I think she deserves credit for that, and she deserves the election result she's got tonight.
Mayor Goff, one of the criticisms of the Labour Party, which is quite valid, is the failure on the light rail and other transport solutions which have gone very slowly for Auckland. How do you see that changing with an absolute landslide majority which Labour is heading for?
Well, I think Labour won't be burdened with the need to get coalition partners on side that they had in the last term. Light rail is something that we have to tackle if we're to free up access to the city centre, from the city centre through to Mount Roskill, to Mangere and to the airport. But I've got to give credit to the government. We have what's called the Auckland Transport Alignment Project, a 10-year budget for transport in Auckland. And Phil Twyford, we had a $6 billion gap, and Phil Twyford came along and he put in that extra funding from the government side. We put in our funding from the regional fuel tax, but we have been able to make some big progress. You know, look at the way that the City Rail Link is developing, the Eastern Busway is developing, the Northern Busway is developing. We've got another harbour crossing we've got to build. We've got light rail. There's a lot to do, and there's a lot more than we have the money to do it with. But we have been making progress, and we need to continue to make that progress. And I look forward to progress being made, and in particularly on light rail.
Do you see that speeding up a bit with Labour, planning to govern alone?
I would very much like it to speed up. I also understand from 32 years in Parliament myself, and half of that time as a cabinet minister, that what it depends on are the resources. I can't spend money as mayor that you don't give me in rates. The government can't spend money as government that you don't give them in taxation. So we're spending your money, and it's how fast and how far you want us to go and how much you can contribute. And it is a balance. We know that we can't be too tough on the rates that we charge or the tax that we charge you. At the same time, the job that we've got to do is huge. For years and years, for decades, I'd say, in Auckland, our population has grown, but we haven't grown the infrastructure to match that population growth. So we need to do that.
Mayor Goff, would you have predicted this result the way it's going today, say about 3 months ago?
I thought that Labour was going to win because of the leadership that Labour had exercised, particularly during COVID. But I might not have predicted that on the night that you'd see the Labour Party, which looked like last time I saw the results, as getting 50% of the vote and being able to govern in its own right. So I think their campaign has been a smart campaign, but it's built on the solid foundation of the leadership through COVID-19 and through the terrorist attacks.
So is it fair, do you think Prime Minister Ardern and Labour Party has got it right, that this election was essentially a COVID election, which probably opposition parties failed to realize and appreciate?
I think everybody knew it was going to be about COVID-19. We've lived, breathed, slept, and just been constantly surrounded by the effect of COVID-19. And here we are, on October the 17th, we're at level 1. Tomorrow night, we're all going to be at Eden Park watching the All Blacks beat the Wallabies. 43,000 of us probably, and one of the few countries in the world where this can actually happen. So fantastic what we've achieved, but let's not diminish the challenge that's ahead of us. We've got a huge challenge ahead of us, and it won't be easy. Not for central government, not for local government, not for any of us.
Certainly, and I think that's a very positive point to end this conversation and let you go and enjoy with your former Labour colleagues and enjoy this well-deserved success that Labour Party has been able to achieve under Prime Minister Ardern. So thank you very much, Mayor Goff, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Goff.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity. Cheers.
After that, like,
Oh, we have got Lena from National Party headquarters, where we have got our Kivindian MP Bakshiji. Bakshiji, बख्शी जी हमें सुन पा रहे हैं? बख्शी जी हमें सुन पा रहे हैं आप?
संदीप जी आपकी आवाज तो आ नहीं रही मेरे को।
अच्छा बख्शी जी, मैं थोड़ा जोर से बोलने की कोशिश करूंगा। जैसा आप अभी कैसा महसूस कर रहे हैं नेशनल पार्टी के रिजल्ट से?
ओवरऑल संदीप जी डिसअपॉइंटमेंट तो है डेफिनेटली, बट उम्मीद करते हैं कि कुछ आगे चलकर कुछ रिकवरी होगी, क्योंकि अभी तक तो एडवांस वोट ही आ रही है और आगे चलकर जो आज की वोटिंग है और जो रूरल वोटिंग है उस पर कैसा रहता है उस पर डिपेंड करेगा, बट ऑब्वियसली हमें उम्मीद थी इससे बेहतर करेंगे
जी। तो अभी आपके हिसाब से पार्टी में कुछ रीथिंकिंग होना शुरू हो गई है या अभी आप सिर्फ चुनाव का वेट कर रहे हैं, रिजल्ट्स का वेट कर रहे हैं?
अभी तो रिजल्ट्स का ही देख रहे हैं, अभी कोई सोच विचार करने की मेरे ख्याल से जरूरत नहीं है। ओवरऑल जूडिथ कॉलिंस ने एक अच्छा परफॉर्मेंस दिया है, एक कठिन समय में उनको इस भागदौड़ को संभालने का मौका मिला, तो मैं समझता हूँ इट विल टेक सम टाइम। वी आर गोइंग टू हैव मीटिंग्स, नंबर ऑफ मीटिंग्स इन नेक्स्ट फ्यू डेज, फिर डिसाइड करेंगे कैसा है।
नहीं, thank you very much Bakshi ji for joining from National Party headquarters. Although I can
No
understand
problem.
you are not able to
And
hear
thank
us
you very
clearly.
much to Indian Weekenders for all the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we will go back and speak to our panelist Sunil, who is again waiting patiently. Sunil, can you hear us? I think we are kind of.
No, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure. So Sunil, you were listening to Mayor Phil Goff and his exuberation, I would say, his excitement in the success of Labour Party. So what do you feel about that?
See, I think if you look at both the parties, how they campaigned, firstly, I think Phil touched one point which I have been hammering for a long time, is that National Party was, appealing to the business people. Labour was appealing to the grassroots people. But majority of your swing votes, etc., were in the middle New Zealanders. And towards the end, if you look carefully how the Labour machinery started approaching and, touching the middle New Zealanders is where I think this election has gone. Because basically, the middle New Zealanders were forgotten. Yes, there were people on the low income group, the poverty line, etc., where Labour was, doing really well. And on the other side, if you look at how Judith and national team campaigned, they went for business. So there was a big gap between, the rich and the poor, if you see it that way. But what about the middle New Zealanders? What about the people who are actually, in the middle of the boat, like in Hindi, kehte hain na, na idhar ke rahe, na udhar ke rahe. So where in the end, the votes started falling towards Labour, because Labour started coming up with policy or with some more, dollar figure. Because at the end of the day, even today, if you ask the common person who's been affected by COVID, and Jacinda rightly said it's a COVID election, the common person obviously wants to know what's happening with their jobs, where the job security is. Everyone is, yes, worried about the economic recovery, but as of today and as of tomorrow, do you and I have a job? And that's what matters. And I think that's how the common New Zealander has voted, and that's how Labour has done a clean sweep. And to come back to what Dave was pointing out absolutely correctly, was around the need for accountability. Will Labour be accountable to anyone now? Because they don't even need supply and confidence from Greens. So basically, in effect, Greens will be opposition.
Well, okay. Now I think सुनील आपने दो बातें बहुत सही बोली, बहुत अच्छी बोली, quite important. एक जो शायद हम मेयर फिलगॉफ से जुड़ने से पहले जो आप बात कर रहे थे, ये सिर्फ 3 ईयर का टर्म है. So despite this historic voting that we have seen, the history has been created. Still, it is a short term of 3 years, and a lot can happen in that 3 years. So things can change again. So Labour would have to be more responsible, and they will have to keep on delivering what aspirations and hope they have raised, especially with this COVID management. And the other thing that you were talking quite rightly about the middle New Zealanders. So these middle New Zealanders are the people who actually are not core supporters of any one party, and they take their votes from one party to another party based on a number of factors. So one of the factors that in this election was obviously of Jacinda's kind and compassionate style of politics. The other was the success in the COVID management. And the third was probably the options that they were given by their main opponent, National Party, in the form of Judith Collins, which probably propelled them to cast their votes in the favor of Jacinda, isn't it, Dev?
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
तो सुनील, मैं आपसे जानना चाह रहा था कि हमने अभी थोड़ी देर पहले कीवी इंडियन एमपी बख्शी जी से बात करी थी, और जैसा हम और देव पहले बात कर रहे थे कि हो सकता है कि नेशनल के 2 कीवी इंडियन एमपी शायद पार्लियामेंट में ना जा पाए, बख्शी जी एंड डॉक्टर परमार. अगेन इट्स वेरी अर्ली टू से दैट, अभी पूरे इलेक्शन रिजल्ट्स आने हैं, और उसके बाद भी एज एन लिस्ट एमपी, elected MPs जब रिटायर करते हैं, लिस्ट MP can enter into parliament, but still looking from what we are getting right now, so how do you think Kiwi Indian community will receive that news? Sunil?
See, Kiwi Indian community ने बख्शी जी और परमार जी को वोट नहीं दिया है, ठीक है. उनने Kiwi Indian community ने वोट दिया है to the parties. Majority of them, yes, because of the work they have done and also that Priyanka has done. But again, there will be a voice missing from the position of the Indian diaspora, Kiwi Indian diaspora. There will be only, probably by the looks of effort, Gaurav keeps winning. There will be 2 people representing the Kiwi Indian community into parliament from the Labour side, and unfortunately no one on the opposition side. So their work will be missed. I mean, Bakshi ji has done a lot of work hamari Indian community mein for over 4 terms. So he has been like a statesman and and quite rightly very senior and respected person. So he won't be able to do the same voice outside the parliament that would have been done if he was still on the list and into the parliament. So it's up to Priyanka and to Gaurav how they take that mentor from Bakshi ji and from Parmar ji with their experience, and Priyanka now already being this going into the parliament for the next term. I think it will be quite a big ask of them. I think they just need to be wise to realize that yes, they, in the absence of any opposition member of parliament of the Indian ethnicity, they both will be, they'll have a lot of load of work for them going into the parliament. So it will be disappointing if Bakshi ji and Parmar ji at the moment doesn't look like they'll make it. But I think on behalf of the Indian diaspora, thank you to them for all their service that they have done and given and time, over the years.
Surely, Sunil, आपने काफी सही बोला, काफी आपने वैल्यूबल बातें बोली उनके कंट्रीब्यूशन को एक्नॉलेज करने के लिए. और जो दूसरी एक बात जो है, जैसा करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग देव, कि जो जैसे बख्शी जी एंड परमार, they were comparatively recent migrants into the country, so probably they would have a more better understanding of I would say the travesty that our new migrants they face in this whole migration journey. Well, Priyanka is also of course a new migrant comparatively, but still she have lived overseas away from India for quite a long time. She was raised in Singapore and then she come over here. And same applies to Gaurav as well. So what we are seeing in the nature of the new Kiwi Indian MPs, they are coming that they are younger. They have left Indian shores. They were not born in India, or they have left Indian shores quite long time ago, and so they will have more challenges in connecting with the new migrants who are still coming in hordes. And but on the other side is that they are more. They have been living in New Zealand for a longer time, so they are more integrated with the rest of New Zealand society. So it's an interesting observation, I believe. What are your thoughts on that? Would you agree with that, or would you disagree with that? Sunil.
Oh, okay. Me. Sorry, I thought you were asking Dave. Apologies for that. I think you are right in saying that there's a lot of new Indian new Indian migrants in the last 10 to 15 years that have come. And I think Gaurav and Priyanka are well adaptable to hear their concerns and speak about their concerns. But don't forget that there are also in the last 25 years there's been a big migration into New Zealand. And but the issues that we face at the moment are quite different than what we faced in 25 years ago. So I think you are absolutely right in saying that these two members of parliament, or would be members of parliament, would be rightly set to raise the concerns, hear the concerns, and actually also to act on those. And I think they there's two things for a new MP. One is you toe the party line, right? And then the other is also you represent your people. So I think they have to. I mean, it's up to them how they see the things, because just remember, we did not place them there. They are Kiwi Indians. We are proud of them. They have come on their own, as in Hindi we say, apne balboote pe aaye hain.
We have elected
Which is very, so which is very good. So, but at the same, pardon?
It's a very big difference from being a list MP and an elected MP. We have elected those two.
Correct.
I mean, assuming that they are elected.
Yeah. And also, Dave, that is absolutely right, because just remember, they will have their own electorate people to look after first. Right. Because they are not list MP like Mr. Bakshi was, mind you, they stood from their own thing, but they could cover the rest of the country. But these two have got their own electorate, which they need to look after first. And I'm sure a lot of what as you very well know, in the past, what used to happen was you go to your local MP, but then you would firstly choose to go to an Indian member of parliament. Yeah. And I think what previously has happened is that Indian member of parliament would say, go back to your MP. Yeah. But an Indian can understand the Indian's plight, and I think they need to be a little bit more adaptable to this, and to contact their MP.
Yeah, Sunil, your expertise lies in trade, India-New Zealand trade. You've done some work there. How do you see this happening, especially as a Labour majority government, and in the COVID scenario?
See, I think one thing is absolutely clear, and I think Jacinda also made it clear the other day, that New Zealand needs to, post-COVID, needs to start looking at I suppose a non-China sort of a basket we need to look at. Having two Indian MPs in Labour, I think they can certainly drive the agenda, but I doubt how much the Labour caucus will listen to them. That's my fear. I can see a few changes happening to their foreign policy, but I don't see under Jacinda what we had previously. I think the overall foreign policy will be more subdued. I hope not, but I have a fear that that's how it will be, because usually, traditionally, Labour has looked insular and looking at its own people. I mean, you can see the track record of how many overseas trips Jacinda has done. Last time, I think they've probably, because she had a foreign minister who was quite interested in going overseas, so she left it to him. And being in a coalition partnership, obviously, that makes a difference. But I don't think, I
Sure,
think
Sunil, I will have to bring back your perspective to domestic politics tonight. Thanks for your input for the foreign policy question that you've answered. But the moment as we have been talking about lies over here, the excitement here in Auckland and obviously in the rest of the New Zealand. So if I have to ask you one final question before I let you go, what's your commentary on the election campaigning, the way you see the way you have seen it about Labour Party, National Party, and other minor parties, and what actually are the main factors for this Jacinda Ardern's landslide victory?
Okay, I'll keep it very brief. Where I think all the political parties, two mistakes that all the political parties have made in this election was, firstly, they missed out middle New Zealand. The middle New Zealand, who's got a two job or one job, who works hard, mom and pop, probably one homeowner or wanting to have a homeowner, both the parties missed that out. And towards the end, we saw a slide from Labour, who had an excellent machinery of grassroots election campaigning. That is the reason why we have seen a landslide victory from Labour. The other thing that has missed out from all the parties, but I think has been captured very well by Labour and also to that effect by Greens, is the youth vote. So many times we forget. I mean, look at the 15-year-olds who will be 18-year-olds in the next term. We miss those people, we miss those votes, and Labour has really captured that well. Where National went wrong, I think, is because they changed. Matthew Hooton should never have, toppled Simon Bridge. I think if Simon and Paula were there, I think we would have seen a very close fight. All credit to Judith for doing her best to
well, I
bring.
I think Sunil, that is a very, very valid and apt comment that you made about that toppling thing. But I think I think Dave has got one final question to ask, or you're done, right? Okay. So thank you very much, Sunil, on that very important observation. Thanks for joining tonight. We will strive to speak to you sometime again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave and Sandeep, for having me. Good night. Bye.
So I think we have got a caller who is online. Hello, this is Sandeep, Indian Weekender Studio. Can you hear me? I think we are still trying to. Hello, you are online speaking with Sandeep. With whom I'm speaking?
Yeah, Sandeep, hi, this is Gary here.
Hi, Gary. Thanks for calling us. So, what are your thoughts and what are your feelings tonight watching the elections?
Yeah, it's been something which was looking like would be a Labour win. But I think the biggest surprise is we can say it's kind of a landslide for Labour. And, the town is red, the whole country is red right now. And so there are a lot of surprises. Also, like how I think Greens has gained a lot of seats this time, and ACT Party itself has gained a lot. And I think the wiping out of New Zealand First is also quite a big thing, considering that Winston Peters was Deputy Prime Minister, and now he's not even in the Parliament. Yeah. That is, I think, quite a statement that the voters have given out. So maybe it's a defeat of the negative politics, which was creeping into New Zealand political system. That's what I would think, and and also some good news is the new young MPs like Gaurav Sharma from Hamilton. I think he'll be a big winner tonight.
बिल्कुल गैरी, वो हमारे हो सकता है कि पहले इलेक्ट्रेट की भी इंडियन एमपी हो, जो कि एक नया इतिहास होगा, एक नई हिस्ट्री होगा. लेकिन आपने बहुत कई पॉइंट्स आपने टच किए, जो डिफीट ऑफ नेगेटिव पॉलिटिक्स. So
Yes.
थोड़ा सा आपके हिसाब से नेशनल पार्टी की हार के कारण और क्या हो सकते हैं?
Look, according to me, National Party obviously will have to do a lot of introspection. I think one thing which they couldn't touch upon, like this was a Jacinda wave, इस बार जो Jacinda Ardern की leadership के under New Zealand has gained in terms of, the COVID response. I think that the voters have, rewarded her for this tonight. And the National Party campaign was less about the policies, and it was, trying to go on the personality trip. And I think that didn't work because, defeating Jacinda on the personality front is next to impossible. So I think that is, my 2 cents on maybe why people didn't vote too much for them.
And what do you think of the rise of the marginal parties? The ACT and Green, they don't look so marginal anymore.
Yes. That is actually the biggest surprise to me personally. Also, we knew that they, the pre-election polls were showing that they will develop, good mileage,
sorry,
and they will get some.
Sorry, Gary,
Yeah.
we have to interrupt you. Just be online. We have got our reporter speaking to Minister Jenny Salisa from Labour's headquarters.
Sure.
Minister Salisa, can you hear us? I think there is some issues. We are still not able to hear Minister Salisa.
I can hear you, Sandeep.
Oh, that's great. Minister Salisa, first of all, many congratulations for this stupendous landslide victory that Labour Party has achieved under Prime Minister Ardern.
Thank you. We're not quite there yet, but we're very excited about the results that we're seeing so far.
Sure. So what, according to you, was the major factor that convinced New Zealanders to vote for Labour Party and Jacinda Ardern?
I think there are several things, but I think lately the country has just looked at how our Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Jacinda Ardern, has led us through COVID-19. Right, when you see the results of COVID-19 for Aotearoa New Zealand and compare it to other countries, we are in a very different place. And, we can go back to school, go to work. We can have mass gatherings like this and an election function at the town hall, whereas many other countries in the world don't have it. And having the focus on health of our community, health of New Zealanders first, and then now we're actually looking at the recovery of our country, of our economy, I think was absolutely the right thing to do for our Prime Minister led.
How do you feel about Labour on course to govern alone without having to depend on other coalition support parties?
We can't talk about the results, the final results, before we see 100% of the votes count. But we are just really grateful that New Zealanders have entrusted so many of their votes towards Labour at this time.
Sure. So, Minister Salisa, what we can expect differently in the second term, especially in the first 100 days from the Labour Party government?
Oh, there are a lot of things. You would have seen our manifesto, you would have seen the major policies that Labour has announced, and you would have seen in the last 3 years, one of our focus has been on education, and you would have seen some of the transformation that has already begun with the education system. One of the things that our government also said was that we would look at health, but that we would look at health this term. You would have heard our Prime Minister say that our health system needs to be addressed. We've got the Heather Simpson review that we're looking at. So that's one of the things that our government would look at addressing. And with COVID-19, not only here, but right around the world, we are looking at what we can do to ensure that we continue moving forward in the health system.
Sure. So, Minister Salisa, as Minister of Ethnic Affairs, in 2017 elections, Labour Party has campaigned with the promise of making or elevating the Department of Ethnic Communities as a full ministry. So can we expect that something happening now after this major stupendous success in 2020 elections?
That was...
Salisa, Are you able to hear us?
A policy of the Labour Party in 2016 with the it is also something that I wish, and I know that a lot of our ethnic communities across Aotearoa New Zealand, because as we go around consulting our people right across Aotearoa, it is also a message that comes through loud and strong that we should have an ethnic ministry. I can say this though, when you look at the amount of resources that has been invested in ethnic communities by our government in the last 3 years and compare it to any other government, this has been the largest investment in ethnic communities. The other thing that I'd say is we weren't able to have the ministry. However, when you look at the overall number of full-time people working in the Office of Ethnic Communities, we went from 17 full-time equivalent to nearly double that. So that is one of the commitments that our government had made was to increase the number of staff so that we can connect with a whole lot more people on the ground. The other was Ethnic Communities Development Fund. We went from $520,000 per year to $4.2 million a year over the next 4 years. So there's a lot that we've done in ethnic communities.
Well, indeed, you are quite right, and I think that were very good achievements to be achieved for this particular ministry. And one last question before I let you go: in the post-COVID scenario, what is your observation that are our ethnic communities on the suffering side? They would be losing jobs or being in more financial strain. So what is your vision, how you see supporting our ethnic communities after COVID?
This is one of the things that our government has also invested in. We've put through several $1 million through the Department of Internal Affairs, going through to the Red Cross, to ensure that we support all those who are here, whether on international student visa, work visa, or here and cannot go home. And so I expect that we as a government will continue to ensure that we provide those sorts of supports to those who are not able to go home yet because of the borders being closed.
One final question: can we expect to see a greater ethnic diversity in the Labour caucus going forward?
Absolutely, you would see the list of over 80 that Labour has. In terms of Pacific, it's possible that we could have up to 5 new Pacific MPs come through. There's a whole lot of ethnic community MPs in the Labour list that are about to come through. But excuse me, forgive me, please. The Prime Minister's here, so I really have to go. My apologies.
Surely. Definitely. Thank you very much for taking time out. Just enjoy the rest of your night, and all the best.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. So that was Minister Jenny Salisa joining directly from Labour's headquarters at Auckland Town House. And from what we heard from Minister was that Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has just arrived. And our reporter is on the hunt. I'm pretty sure as soon as he is able to see Prime Minister Ardern walking over there, we will quickly go there and see the success right from there, a well-deserved success. But I think I will go and touch base with Gary, who has been waiting. Thanks for your patience, Gary.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah, Sandeep.
तो आप सुन रहे थे मिनिस्टर सलीसा ने जैसा बताया, उन्होंने काफी कुछ अचीवमेंट बताए अपने, जो कि सही भी है, काफी वैलिड अचीवमेंट है पिछले 3 सालों में, और उन्होंने काफी आगे की एक्सपेक्टेशंस भी बताई. तो आपको क्या लगता है कि अगले 1 साल में ये जो नई लेबर सरकार आएगी, हाउ इट विल बी बेनिफिशियल और हाउ विल इट पैन आउट फॉर द Kiwi Indian community?
देखिए, डेफिनेटली आई वुड से दैट जेनी सलीसा ने बहुत अच्छा काम किया है मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एथनिक अफेयर्स में, एंड ये हम कुछ 3 साल से देख रहे हैं व्हाट शी जस्ट सेड कि डेफिनेटली उनका स्टाफ बढ़ा रहा है, उनका एंगेजमेंट विद द कम्युनिटी ऑफ द ऑफिस ऑफ एथनिक अफेयर्स का जो एंगेजमेंट है विद द एथनिक कम्युनिटीज, वो बहुत उन्होंने बढ़ाया है. एंड सो डेफिनेटली आई थिंक दे हैव डन क्वाइट अ लॉट ऑफ गुड वर्क, एंड आई होप दे कंटिन्यू डूइंग दैट. So and that is what also she said. So yes, I think on that point of view at least they're on the right track. अब देखना मेन ये है कि आगे माइग्रेंट कम्युनिटीज के लिए फ्रॉम वीजा पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू क्या ये लोग हेल्प करते हैं, क्योंकि कोविड के बाद वैसे भी वीजा सिस्टम्स हैव बीन इन अ वेरी बैड शेप. तो क्या वो उसको वापस बिल्ड कर पाते हैं, और जो डिलेज हो रहे हैं ऑन द वीजाज, उस बात को ये लोग कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस देंगे, कितना तवज्जो देंगे, दैट आई थिंक विल बी द माइग्रेंट कम्युनिटी विल हैव अ क्लोज वॉच ऑन दैट.
Yeah. Gary, how do you see the migrant community going forward in this, in its representation in Parliament in terms of policies which are more friendly to it? Now that Labour has the whole run of the terrain, it doesn't have to consult anybody. Do you think it will be
Yes.
more receptive to listening to ethnic communities like India, or like Indians, Kiwi Indians, or will it take a more guarded approach, which it has kind of shown since COVID?
See, let's hope so that they take the right approach and they consult the migrant communities more. देखिए, लेबर ने वैसे तो हमेशा बोला है कि they are supporting labor, the migrant communities. But जो अभी इनकी immigration policy रही है, that has not been saying what they say. So उनके कहने में और करने में फर्क काफी रहा है. And I think Indian Weekender as a media also has been raising this for quite some time. और देखना अब ये होगा कि हमेशा जब ये प्रॉब्लम आई है, हमेशा उन्होंने ये कहा है कि because of coalition partners pressure, they have not been able to fully support the migrant community. वो अब एक्सक्यूज नहीं रहा. तो अब let's see and let's hope that they deliver on their promises. And I think ये एक और मेजर पॉइंट होगा जो within 100 days हम देख सकते हैं कि कितना ये वीजा इश्यूज वगैरह रिजॉल्व होते हैं.
बिल्कुल सही बात है गौरव. And just to add on what you are saying and what Dave has rightly said, that probably one of the most important portfolio that Labour Party needs to work upon is immigration. Be it COVID or be it without COVID, immigration portfolio has been the single biggest disaster in the first Labour term government. And that is an area where we strongly believe that Labour needs to pull their socks up, and they need to do more community engagement. They need to do more engagement with ethnic media like us, which we have been raising the plight of our community members. And that is where actually that is one area that they need to work very hard.
हाँ जी, बिकॉज अभी भी न्यूज में आ रहा है, इनफैक्ट आज और कल ही न्यूज में था कि अभी काफी सारे प्राइमरी सेक्टर में जॉब्स हैं, लाइक फ्रूट पिकर्स वगैरह के जो वेकेंट पड़े हैं. लोकल जो पहले गवर्नमेंट कह रही थी कि लोकल किवीज नीड द जॉब, और वो बात अब क्लियर है कि किवीज आर नॉट टेकिंग दोज जॉब्स. So in spite of that, why are we not opening the things for visas for migrant workers, ताकि वो आके jobs भी ले सके और न्यूजीलैंड इकोनॉमी को benefit भी हो, and no industry goes in a loss.
You're absolutely correct, but there's, as you very rightly pointed out, there is a gap in what they say and what they do, with so far a very convenient excuse of coalition politics, which is not there anymore. So very interesting to see how
Sorry to interrupt, Dave. What I'm seeing is that our correspondent from National Party headquarters, they have Gary will come back and speak to you, but what we are seeing that Judith Collin has just arrived on the stage. On the stage. And she's going to deliver a speech. And
thank you so much.
Let's see if we can go and hear directly from Judith.
You've done everything
Sure.
I asked you to do. And that's sort of
Thank you. Thank you.
We won. Our volunteers, we just love you. You've coped so hard. You've coped so well with all the uncertain lockdowns and the campaigns and it having to be done differently, all those sorts of things. You've just done everything we asked you to do. And boy, did we know it was going to be tough. But you kept the faith. Thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who voted National. And thank you for your trust and confidence. And the next 3 years will be an opportunity for us to repay that trust. And we will make you so proud that you supported us during this tough time. To all our candidates who have not been successful tonight, thank you for your hard work. It takes a lot of courage to put your hand up and want to be in Parliament. Thank you for doing that. And to my family, particularly David and James. When I agreed to take on the leadership of the National Party weeks before the scheduled election, we knew it would not just be an obligation for me. To my husband David and son James, thank you for picking up the load when I was working every day and night. Thank you for lifting that load off me so I could give everything to the campaign. To the President, Peter, the board and staff at National Party and in Parliament and our electorate offices, especially those in National Leader's Office. You have worked for a common goal of presenting New Zealand with a better way forward, and I want to personally thank you for your commitment and unrelenting devotion to the cause.
That would be a very difficult speech to deliver, right?
I think only Judith can deliver.
Thank you to the campaign team and to my deputy, Jerry Brownlee. When I became leader 3 months ago, we had to work very quickly and with confidence during a very difficult series of events. Thank you for always backing me and having to make decisions that we ended up having to make. A big thank you to the national MPs. Thank you for backing me to be your leader. Thank you for supporting me and each other through what has been a grueling and long campaign with the added difficulties of lockdowns and COVID and changing circumstances. And for those who are leaving us this election, can I say that you will be missed? You have contributed to New Zealand and to a team that has the most comprehensive policy platform of any opposition that I have seen. That's right. I'm sorry to see you go. And for those who did not plan to leave Parliament, can I say how sorry I am that we could not bring you sufficient party vote to secure your return. To Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, who I have phoned before, congratulations on your result, because it is, I believe, an outstanding result for the Labour Party. It has been a tough campaign. New Zealand is now in recession. The International Monetary Fund has stated that New Zealand will, on current policy settings, be in a worse economic position in 5 years' time than other countries that we compare ourselves to. New Zealand is in for a tough economic ride, and it is going to need better fiscal policy than we have so far seen. That's right. The National Party will take, we will reflect, we will take time to reflect, and we will review, and we will change. National will re-emerge from this loss a stronger, disciplined and more connected party. And I promise you, the National Party will be a robust opposition. We will hold the government to account for failed promises, and we will push on behalf of all New Zealanders, the government to do better for Kiwis. So even though tonight has been a very tough night for us all, and the campaign a very tough campaign, 3 years will be gone in the blink of an eye. And I say to everybody, we will be back. Just to avoid any doubt, tonight is the start of the next campaign.
So Dave, what do you make of that speech from Judith Collins?
I think it was a brave speech, and that's completely in line with her personality, which is never say die. And one thing you cannot accuse Judith Collins of lack of guts. She's very gutsy, and I think it is definitely a concession speech. She's already congratulated Jacinda Ardern, and
I think, yeah, in that respect, probably no other existing, your current or former National Party leader would have delivered this speech at this moment in that diffusing style.
with no emotion at all.
With no emotion at all. And in a style that still was able to garner a lot of support from the party support. And I think hats off to Judith, at least for this particular moment, where she was able to, I would say, imbibe a lot of hope in the National Party supporters.
One of the things she said, it'll emerge stronger and more connected. I think that's a very good word to really, reflect for the party. Connected. I think it's been disconnected. Its leadership has been disconnected. It's been disconnected from the people. So that's a huge
It just
thing.
suddenly got disconnected, and again now going back into some analysis that has emerged very recently, that probably National Party was sleepwalking into this defeat right after the 2017 elections, because they have been living under this illusion that they have got 46% of votes, and that's why probably they have won that election, and they were hoping to ride on that 46% votes.
I think there was complacency there.
That was huge complacency over there, and probably that was required a lot, because this kind of defeat was required, without which they could not have shackled from the former John Key and Bill English era. Because what we have seen after 2017 was a continuation of John Key and Bill English era minus those two leaders, and their existing, including the former leader Simon Bridges and all other setup that was continuation. They were just trying to continue with what they have learned under John Key and Bill English era, and they have got nothing new to offer to New Zealanders, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay. Well, that is probably an apt, I would say, commentary on the defeat of National Party. And let's see if we can connect back with our reporter from our reporter Rizwan from
The Labour
Auckland
headquarters.
Town Hall, and if we can get some live coverage, because it would be not too far from here that Prime Minister Ardern would be arriving on stage to deliver a stardust full speech, isn't it?
Yes, now that the concession speech has already come in.
Sure. So we will go and see if we can connect with Rizwan at Auckland Town Hall. Rizwan, can you hear us? Right, I think we are having some difficulties, so we will quickly try to connect with him again. In the meantime, Dave, although we have been talking to and fro a lot about this election night, and what's your takeaway from Judith Collins' speech, the last speech? Although you have summed it quite well, but what do you envisage for the future of the party? How do you think they will be going to rebuild?
I think, although she put up a brave front, nobody has a clue of what really where they start, because there are ructions already against the leadership. So that is something which they need to sort out very, very much at the beginning. If she does not have the unanimous backing of whatever is left of the Labour Party, that's where they need to start. National Party. So,
plus, we don't see some, I would say, imaginative leadership from the current caucus at the moment who would be in a position, like barring Christopher Luxon from Botany. I'm not sure if he's back in or not yet in the parliament. He is in the parliament or not. But we need to find, the National Party caucus will have to find some kind of leader who have got that vision of what does political conservatism stand for, what does fiscal conservatism stand for, and probably more than going back and connecting with the local people, probably they need to check back their roots, their ideologies, what they represent. And my take is that political conservatism here in New Zealand might be on a revisit that needed to be revisited, and we will need to see how it unfolds.
It's going to be challenging, and it's going to be, it's not going to be easy. Well, it's one thing to say that on the night, but it's quite different to really get whatever remains of a flock together and then, sing in the same song sheet. It's going to be a challenge. I think we can connect to Rizwan at this stage because...
yes, we are trying to connect. What we have heard is that there is a huge jubilance over there, and Prime Minister Ardern is taking her time, as expected, to immerse in the glory, the moment of the glory. And we are trying to connect back with Rizwan just to show us how the environment is there right at this moment. That needs to be relayed back to our audiences and viewers who are so passionately watching this live show.
Yes, I think Jacinda Ardern has reached the venue and she is making her way to the stage. So it's just going to be a while. I mean, a matter of a couple of minutes maybe before she arrives and addresses everybody.
Sure. Rizwan, can you hear us?
Another big national stalwart has lost, and that is Nick Smith in Nelson. Nick Smith was Nelson was his bailiwick. It was his pocket borough, but he has lost, and this just shows the whole sweep. You can call it landslide. You can call it sweep. You can call it
particularly in all the provinces. The provinces were used to be given for conservative base, the rural and farming community out there. But if they have come out and voted in such huge numbers to Prime Minister Ardern, then definitely it's a vote for Prime Minister Ardern. And probably going forward, I think our media commentators, they will be busy along with both the parties that how they want to interpret this landslide voting. Is it a 2 ticks for Labour's policies on agriculture and climate change? Or is it just a 2 tick on Prime Minister Ardern's COVID management?
I think it would probably be a bit of both, which is why the landslide happened.
Sure.
But one thing is certain, that it's a tick against a handbrake.
Sorry, what?
It's a tick against the handbrake.
Against the handbrakes, definitely. Well, I think
And I don't think handbrakes are very useful in a landslide, eh?
they are not. But on another note, probably we need to acknowledge the contribution that this gentleman has brought into New Zealand politics.
Sure.
Justin Peters. He has been an ardent politician he has been in Parliament for the last 40 odd years and known face. Well, on many previous occasions, media and other commentators they have assumed that he is going to be out, but I think probably for one final time they have got it right. It would be too much of ask to expect that he will be back again in 2023. He remains in the helm of affairs till then. Is again not something to be talking about this night, but surely we need to, despite his policies and his approach not being very popular within our migrant communities, we need to acknowledge his contribution to New Zealand politics.
Yeah, in that sense, Parliament will be that much drabber without him, you know.
Sure,
I mean,
sure,
the kind of repartee, the old style, old world repartee, and the humor and, you know, the backhanded compliments, which he was such a master at. We are not going to have that, and that's that's something which is now going to go into our past memories.
Definitely. Well, that's a very apt moment for us to take a quick break.
Yeah.
And that's not for expressing or mourning on New Zealand First demise at the moment. Just to be very clear, politically correct.
Maybe demise of the handbrake.
Definitely. So what we're trying to do here is trying to connect with our chief reporter Rizwan, who is at Auckland Town House, and trying to bring us live Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern. And we will just take a couple of minutes of break, and we will come back live very soon.
Anybody for Badam?
Okay. Labour Party faithful. Good people of Auckland. Are you ready? Shall we do this? Let's keep moving. Show some love and welcome to the stage. Let's go.
Tonight, New Zealand has shown the Labour Party its greatest support in at least 50 years. We have seen that support in both urban areas and in rural areas. And seats we may have hoped for, but in those equally we may not have expected. And for that, I only have two simple words. Thank you. Thank you to the people who worked so hard to share our knowledge. It was here for us to not just that you can say. Thank you to the candidates and members of Parliament who were not just for 6 weeks, but for 3 years to earn their Thank you to the ministers who gave us their voice, who trusted us to continue with leading New Zealand recovery, who backed the plan we are already rolling out. And to those amongst you who may not have supported Labour before, and the results tell me there were a few of you. To you, I say thank you. We will not take your support for granted. And I just promise you, we will be a party that governs for every New Zealander. And governing for every New Zealander has never been so important, more than it has been now. We are living in an increasingly polarized world, a place where more and more people have lost the ability to see one another's point of view. I hope that this election, New Zealand has shown that this is not who we are, that as a nation we can listen and we can debate. After all, we are too small to lose sight of other people's perspectives. Elections aren't always great at bringing people together, but they also don't need to tear one another apart. So, I say this. This has not been an ordinary election, and it's not an ordinary time. It's been full of uncertainty and anxiety, and we set out to get antidotes to that. As a nation, we needed a plan for recovery, and so that is what we
We needed an ongoing health response to the global pandemic to keep states focused on what we've done. And we needed a team focused absolutely and entirely on New Zealand and Labour absolutely So it's been strong. And the Labour will lead the government for the next 3 months. There is much more to do. We will build that. Stronger than an answer to the many challenges New Zealand already faces. This is our opportunity to build an economy that works for everyone, to keep creating decent jobs, to upskill and train our people, to protect our environment and address our climate challenges. It's an opportunity we already have, and a plan we have laid out to invest in the infrastructure that sets us up for generations to come, creating thousands of jobs. New state homes and house homes. We can accelerate our response and our recovery and
state homes to house the homeless, 100% renewable electricity generation, free trades training and interest-free loans for small businesses to expand and to thrive. Our plan is already in action and already working. But after this result, we have the mandate to accelerate our response and our recovery, and tomorrow we start. We know the next few years will not be easy. The last few have not been easy either. But there have been chinks of light that have shone through even the darkest of times. That light has been our nation's determination, our support for one another, our sense of resolve. And that light has always been more powerful than the most overwhelming darkness. Yes, policies, ideas, and having a plan matters, but it will only be as good as the people that it works to support. And I cannot imagine a people I would feel more privileged to work on behalf of, to work alongside, and to be Prime Minister for. We will govern as we campaign positively, with optimism about our future, with a relentless focus on a recovery that brings New Zealanders with us to deliver long-lasting change. Now more than ever is the time to keep going, to keep working, to grab hold of the opportunities that lay in front of us. So let's step forward together. Ka hoake tono tātou. Let's keep moving.
And that was Jacinda Ardern there, obviously giving her victory speech. Other Labour Party members have rushed onto the stage to be with her. Carmel Sepuloni there. That was some interesting wording, very conciliatory, wasn't it?
Yeah.